Chapter 2187. The siblings joked around and finished their breakfast just like that. Li Siqing and Su Qianxi were always together, so they naturally went to the company together. These people of the same age had agreed to go to the amusement park together yesterday. In addition to Li Jianyue, Li Jianxian, Li Mosin, Li Moyun, and Yu Chulin, there were also Rong Panpan and O Xiaoxiao. After the chauffeur of the O family and the Li family sent them to the amusement park, they took out their student IDs and bought tickets together. The group of 7 people spent most of the day queuing up. Fortunately, there were many people, so they chatted and played games together, and the time passed quickly. However, Li Jianyue didn't expect to meet someone she wasn't familiar with at the amusement park. Quan Jingyi, who had taken off his school uniform, had also taken off his lazy clothes. At this moment, he was wearing a pointy hat on his back and a lady's sling bag on his back. He held 2 ice creams with a resigned look on his face and looked ahead helplessly. Standing right in front of them was a girl who looked to be the same age as them. She was wearing a pink Lolita-style dress and had delicate makeup on her face. She was holding a camera and smiling brightly as she took pictures of Quan Jingyi. It had to be said that Quan Jingyi's appearance was very good. At this moment, he frowned slightly and looked impatient and helpless. He looked much more pleasing to the eye than the half-dead look in school. Li Jianyue couldn't help but take a few more glances. Then, she was waved by a hand in front of her. "What are you looking at?" Li Moyun followed her gaze and found that among the surging crowd, there was a tall boy who was particularly eye-catching. "Wow, everyone come and look. My sister is looking at a handsome guy." Li Moyun shouted exaggeratedly. "Brother Mosin, look." Li Jianyue immediately glared at Li Moyun and said impatiently, "You are so annoying. I just took a look. That is my classmate." "Wow, a male classmate." Li Moyun finally found a breakthrough point to vent his hatred. How could he let it go? He raised his voice and said, "What a handsome male classmate." Li Mosin was originally not far from Li Jianyue. At this time, when he heard Li Moyun's words, his gaze naturally followed the direction that Li Moyun was pointing. On the other side, Quan Jingyi also noticed the commotion and looked over. His lazy, pitch-black eyes met with Li Mosin's. Their eyes met. One was casual, while the other was vigilant. Quan Jingyi sensed the hostility of the other party, and his gaze quickly fell on Li Mosin's side. A girl was grabbing a chubby young man and beating him up. The fair and chubby young man shouted exaggeratedly, big brother, save me. Your sister is crazy, crazy." Li Mosin glanced at Li Moyun and said, "You deserve it." Li Moyun wanted to cry, but had no tears. He shouted, "You're inhumane for not saving me." Li Mosin ignored him and turned his gaze back to Quan Jingyi. However, Quan Jingyi had already looked away and walked away while eating his ice cream. The girl beside Quan Jingyi glanced at Li Mosin and greeted him with a smile. She caught up with Quan Jingyi and said, "Wow, that mixed-race guy is so handsome. Who is he? Do you know him?" Quan Jingyi shoved the ice cream into her hands. "He's the top student in our school, a senior in year 3. Wow. Do you know what it's called?" Chapter 2188. Seeing that Quan Jingyi had left, Li Mosin realized that this person seemed to be Ursu's deskmate. He had only seen his face once a few days ago. The rest of the time, this guy had been lying on his stomach. Was he sleeping? Li Mosin frowned unconsciously. He should ask their class teacher to change their seats. Such a person would definitely affect Ursu's grades if he was Ursu's deskmate. Li Jianyue was originally a person with weak willpower. Once she had decided on something, as long as someone instigated her, her position would be shaken and changed. Such a young girl was innocent and gullible. Li Mosin was often worried that the young girl would be tricked by others. Now that there was such a delinquent by Li Jianyue's side, it would be terrible if Li Jianyue's little ambition was shaken. Li Mosin thought about this and turned around to find that Li Jianyue and Li Moyun had already run to buy cotton candy. O Xiaoxiao and Rong Panpan were holding hands and whispering to each other. The 2 little girls were smiling happily. Li Jianxian and Yu Chulin did not like to play this kind of amusement park. After being dragged by Li Jianyue to play, The two of them slipped away with the excuse of going to the toilet. At that moment, they had already gone to the cafe and the amusement park to sit. Lee Mosen stood in the same place, and people around him kept looking at him in amazement. Among them, the majority were girls. "Brother Mosen, what flavor of ice cream do you want?" Lee Jianhua shouted at Lee Mosen. "I'll buy you a chocolate one." "Okay." Lee Jianhua's voice was not soft. Lee Mosen looked helpless and made an okay gesture to her. Lee Jianhua smiled happily and said to the girl selling the ice cream, "There's strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla. Can you finish it?" Li Moyun was holding a hot dog in his hand and eating it happily. Li Jianhua said confidently, "The vanilla is yours, the chocolate is Brother Mosen's, and the strawberry is mine. I didn't say I wanted it. It's okay, just take it. I'll try it, and the rest is all yours." Li Moyun was speechless. Li Jianhua gave the money and licked the ice cream with a smile. After giving the ice cream to Li Mosen, Li Jianhua's eyes fell on Oh Xiao Xiao and Rong Pan Pan. Li Moyun only saw Li Jianhua running towards the two little girls. Then, the three little girls held hands and walked towards the merry-go-round. Li Moyun was dragged to line up unwillingly. When it was finally their turn, Li Jianhua smiled happily and rushed to occupy the largest and tallest horse. She turned back and shouted to Li Mosen, "Brother Mosen, help us take a photo." "All right." Li Moyun was indignant and said, "Brother Mosen, you spoil her too much." "Li Moyun, it's none of your business." Li Jianhua pouted angrily. "If you have a problem with it, help me take a picture." No. It wasn't that Li Moyun hadn't tried it before. When he went on a vacation, he was ordered by Li Jianhua to take all kinds of photos. He was exhausted just carrying the camera. Since then, Li Moyun swore that he would never take photos for Li Jianhua again. It was too much suffering. Looking at Li Mosen's expression, Li Moyun couldn't help but complain, "This princess syndrome is all because of you. In the future, if any guy can stand her, he will definitely not be able to get married." His voice wasn't loud, but Li Jianhua's ears were sharp. She immediately said, "Li Moyun." Chapter 2189. Li Mosen's words were heard by a girl next to him, and she immediately shouted, "F***CK. Didn't they say that they were siblings? This doesn't seem right." The girl's voice was not soft, and Li Jianhua immediately looked over. With one glance, she saw the pink Lolita-style dress that the girl was wearing. Wasn't that the girl who was beside Quan Jingyi just now? Li Jianhua blinked her eyes and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? My brother dotes on me the most. Of course, I have to be responsible to the end." "Umph." The girl was frightened by Li Jianhua's confident look, and she shrank her neck. She asked weakly, "How are you going to be responsible?" "Of course, you're going to be responsible for finding a boyfriend for me to rely on in my next life." Li Jianhua did not suspect anything and did not think much about it. On the contrary, Li Moyun had originally thought of the same idea as Li Jianhua. However, after being reminded by the girl, he suddenly realized that there might be another possibility. After all, Li Jianhua and Li Mosen were not biological siblings. Li Moyun shuddered all over and thought about it in fear. He looked at Li Jianhua and then looked at Li Mosen. Finally, his gaze fell on the girl who was obviously relieved. Seeing this, Li Moyun couldn't help but touch his chin again. Was he thinking too much? Hopefully not. The smile on Li Mosen's face was obviously a little more restrained than before. His gaze fell on the girl coldly, but it only lingered for a moment before he turned away. The merry-go-round soon began to turn, and Li Jianhua sat on it. She was wearing a beautiful pink coat in the style of a cute little princess. Li Jianhua's appearance was exquisite, and her smile was like a flower. A casual glance was enough to make people unable to look away and completely attracted to her. The dreamy music surrounded the dreamy lights, and Li Jianhua's beautiful and exquisite smile. Li Mosen could not stop the camera in his hand, one after another. However, after every photo, Li Mosen's gaze did not stop on the camera. Instead, he stared at Li Jianhua. In his azure blue eyes, other than the dreamy lights reflected in the bottom of his eyes, there was only Li Jianhua's figure. Sitting on the merry-go-round, Li Moyun yawned and said, Why isn't it over yet? Let's go play bumper cars, shall we? No, what's so fun about bumper cars? Li Jianhua immediately pouted. Why don't we go play interstellar travel? All right, but let's play the bumper cars first. Li Moyun was very determined. Oh no, the bumper cars keep bumping into each other. I was almost sent flying last time. When Li Jianhua thought of the unpleasant experience from the last time, she felt a shadow in her heart. Let's go through interstellar travel. No, no, no. Li Moyun had no choice but to use his trump card and said, Brother Mosin will bring you flying. Brother Mosin is very powerful. You were sent flying the last time because you didn't play with Brother Mosin. If you play with him this time, I guarantee that you'll be the one who will be sent flying. Really? Li Jianhua seemed to be asking Li Moyun, but she was looking at Li Mosin. Li Mosin received Li Jianhua's puzzled gaze and nodded. Yes. All right, let's go then. Sure enough, Li Mosin and Li Jianhua drove very steadily. On the other hand, Li Mosin was hit by Li Jianhua's instigation. The more he begged for mercy, the happier Li Jianhua laughed. Do you still want to play? Chapter 2190. Still playing? Li Moyun was already dizzy from all the bumps. If he continued to play, he would be the unlucky one. Li Moyun was panting. When he finally got down, all the fat on his body was itchy from the shaking. He looked at Li Mosin and Li Jianhua, who were in cahoots with each other. He was furious. I must complain to Dad when I get back. Oof. However, it did not take long for Li Moyun to forget about this matter. The children had been playing for the whole day and were starving. Once they got out of the amusement park, they went to a famous restaurant in Kingstown called Pickled Fish. It was said that the food in this restaurant was extremely delicious. It was affordable and delicious. More importantly, the owner of this restaurant was a fan of Honor of Honor. Based on the ranking of Honor of Honor, he could give different discounts. The highest ranking, which was the top 5 of the Honor of Honor, could get a 50% discount. They could also be personally received by the owner and have priority to eat. There was an endless stream of people who coveted the delicious food, and there were even more people who were poisoned by the pesticide. Therefore, apart from the locals, there were also many tourists who came to eat. Unfortunately, among Li Jianhua's group, Li Jianhua and Yu Chulin were not very interested in this game. The highest ranking was Li Mosin. He was the Honor of Honor, but he was only ranked 6th in the district. Therefore, they waited for an hour just to queue up. A group of people sat in the queue at the entrance of the restaurant and played games. It was noisy and full of vitality. Occasionally, someone saw them and was attracted by their appearance. Someone looked at them and said, Do you still need more people? Join me. I'll carry you. The person who spoke was a young man who looked like a student. When he spoke, he looked at Li Jianhua with a smile. Li Jianhua's appearance was the most outstanding among the 3 girls. Her skin was unbelievably fair, and her facial features were also like Su Qianxi's. She was charming and beautiful. Li Jianhua was about to answer when she heard Li Mosin say, No, that's enough. Oh, the person looked a little disappointed. When he returned to his friends, he was pushed and laughed at by a few of them. Li Jianhua looked at Sun Shangxiang, who was 0 to 9, and felt a little guilty. She said weakly, Brother Mosin, am I too weak? I'm not a noob. I'm much better than Moyun, Li Mosin said with a smile. When Li Moyun heard this, he immediately became indignant and said, Brother Mosin, what you said is not very appropriate. One look at my 18 to 3 Luna, and you can tell that I'm very strong. Li Jianhua also felt that Li Mosin was lying through his teeth. I know it myself, Li Mosin said. In a while, your record will be better than his. Li Moyun snorted disdainfully. She wouldn't be stronger than me, even if I shared half of my strength with her. Oh, Xiao Xiao also nodded. And Moyun is quite good at games. Well, Brother Mosin, you're too biased. Even Rong Pan couldn't stand it anymore. Although Moyun is easy to bully, you can't say that. Li Moyun said, Hey, who are you helping by saying that? The girls giggled. Li Moyun was unconvinced and said, Let's change the lineup this time. I'll lead Xiao Xiao and Pan, and you'll lead Ursu. What do you think? Xiao Xiao and Pan were still all right, as they were a little familiar with the game. Although Ursu was no stranger to it, she would only be bullied by Li Moyun. Li Ersu was indignant and said, "There are only 3 of you. I'm not convinced. Doesn't Brother Chu know how to play too? Let's play together," Li Mayun said with a sneaky smile. Brother Chu has also downloaded the game on his phone. I saw it yesterday. Brother Mosin is so good. It shouldn't be a problem for you to lead Brother Chu, right? Chapter 2191. As the protagonist, Yu Chulin immediately turned to look at him when he heard that. Li Mayun smiled slyly and asked, "Brother Chu, do you know how to play this game?" "I do," Yu Chulin answered subtly. "A little." "Oh." Li Mayun trusted Yu Chulin very much and said, "A little. Let's play then. You, Brother Mosin, and my sister will form a team. I'll bring the cute Xiao Xiao and Pan Pan. What do you think?" "Sure." Yu Chulin agreed readily, and this made Li Mayun smile happily. Although he was a little reckless when it came to playing games, he was still a champion who had fought his way up. Xiao Xiao was quite talented and was already a star. Rong Pan Pan was already at the peak of platinum and was only 1 step away from diamond. On the other hand, Li Jianyue was a rookie. Although Li Mosin was powerful, how could he play with a rookie and a newbie? Li Mayun was already calculating in his mind and said, "Let's make this clear first. Whoever loses will have to pay for today's meal." "Sure." Yu Chulin was very straightforward and had already taken out his phone. "Go ahead." After Yu Chulin logged in, he immediately clicked on it. Everyone realized that Yu Chulin didn't even have a rank. Li Mayun chuckled and clicked on the 5v5 map. He invited the 3 of them and then entered the team. Li Jianxian sat at the side and watched them fight with each other. He smiled and said, "You guys play then. I'll order the dishes later." Okay, no problem." No one had any objections. After each of them chose their hero, they immediately entered the battlefield. Li Mayun keenly noticed that Yu Chulin had chosen a hero that was free for a limited time. It was a jungler hero that was more difficult. Li Bai, the Sword Immortal, Li Bai, was dressed in a white robe and had short hair. A wine gourd hung on his waist, and he drank from it from time to time. He held a long sword in his hand, and a hearty laughter could be heard when he clicked on it. The water of the great river flows from the sky to the sea and never returns. F***CK, it's Li Bai. Rong Pan Pan exclaimed in shock. Li Jianrui saw it too and immediately stopped him. "No, Brother Chu." However, the moment Li Jianrui spoke, Yu Chulin had already clicked on the confirm button. It's over. In a non-ranking match, once the chosen hero was confirmed, it could not be changed. Yu Chulin looked a little confused as he asked, "What's wrong?" Li Jianyue looked as if she had nothing left to live for. She said, "It's over. This person is very difficult. I've been learning for a long time, but I still haven't learned how to play. His HP is low, and his positioning has to be very, very tricky." "Oh, it's all right." Yu Chulin chuckled. "I'll give it a try." "Ha ha ha." Li Mayun could already see the light at the end of the tunnel. "Just give it a try. You'll only get better if you try. If you don't give it a try, how will you know how terrible your death will be?" Li Jianyue's gloating words made Li Jianyue even angrier. She reached out and pinched him. Li Mayun squealed like a pig. "Ouch, ouch, ouch." "It's okay," Li Mosin said. "Ersu, you play what you're good at." Li Mayun grinned and said, "Don't worry, there's nothing she's good at." "Ha ha." Li Jianyue was so angry that she kicked him again and said, "Who said that? I know how to play as a sorcerer. I'm very good at playing as Zhuge Liang." "That's right. It's because it's faster to escape, isn't it?" Chapter 2192. Zhuge Liang was a famous military counselor during the Three Kingdoms period. He played the role of a sorcerer in honor of kings. His second skill was 3-stage displacement, which allowed him to run very fast. The main reason why Li Jianyue liked to play Zhuge Liang was because he was handsome and had a pleasant voice. However, Li Jianyue's maneuvering was really not flattering. Li Jianyue looked at Li Mosin angrily and said, "Brother Mosin, what should I play?" "Let's play Zhuge Liang. The main thing is to be happy." "But what if we lose?" "If we lose, we lose. Playing games is originally entertainment." Li Mosin smiled and reached out to rub Li Jianyue's head. "What are you afraid of?" Even if we lose, it's my treat. That's right. Li Moyun smiled brightly, and his chubby face looked like a flower was about to bloom. If we lose, we lose. Brother Mosen won't blame you. Anyway, Brother Chu is also a newbie. If you want to cheat him, you can cheat him together. Li Moyun, Li Jianhua was angry. Don't you have a conscience when you compare me to a newbie? Yes, it hurts. So hurry up and play Zhuge Liang. Let me calm down. Oh, Xiao Xiao laughed. Moyun, you're so bad. Rong Pampan couldn't stand it anymore and said, why don't I switch positions with Ursu? Ursu will be in your team, and I will be in Mosen and Brother Chu's team. In that case, the difference in strength wouldn't be too big. No, that's meaningless, Li Moyun said seriously. It's a battle between me and Ursu. Don't you think so, Ursu? Oomph. While the few of them were joking around, Li Jianhua had already chosen Zhuge Liang, while Li Mosen had chosen Miyamoto Musashi, who he was better at. Miyamoto Musashi was a Japanese swordsman who was invincible. In fact, he was indeed very invincible. When he was at his peak, he could easily escape from 5 opponents. Although his strength had been reduced, he was still relatively strong compared to many other heroes. Li Moyun laughed when he saw the lineup. Because he knew that Li Jianhua wanted to play Zhuge Liang, Li Moyun cheekily chose a more difficult hero, Luna. Luna could leave a mark on the enemy's body. As long as there was a mark, the 3 skills could be used indefinitely. What was even more despicable was that the second skill could use the beauty of the moonlight goddess to attract you. Even if Zhuge Liang ran fast, he would still be sucked in. Li Mosen's lineup was Miyamoto Musashi, Zhuge Liang, and Li Bai. On Li Moyun's side were Luna, Zhang Fei, and Sun Shangxiang. Sun Shangxiang was an archer. With one skill, she could roll everywhere. Every time she rolled, she would hit someone. Pa, 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 she could kill someone. As for Zhang Fei, he was a very ugly and burly man. Zhang Fei's greatest fear was his 3 skills. With Zhang Fei's original ugly appearance, with the addition of these 3 skills, he could directly knock out the enemy because of his ugliness. Enemies who were so ugly that they could only be defeated by their opponents, unable to retaliate at all. When Li Jianhua saw the lineup of the other party, her face fell. She said, Brother Mosen, I think we're going to fail. Don't be afraid. Just don't die. But in reality, it was very difficult to keep Li Jianhua alive. Some people were not only bad at playing, but they also loved to wander around. Li Jianhua was such a person. In the blink of an eye, she had died 3 times. Li Jianhua felt wronged and said, Can't you guys go easy on me? No. Li Moyun was elated. But soon, he was surprised and said, Brother Chu seems to be quite good at playing. You even know how to grow in the wilderness. Damn, you even know how to beat the tyrant? The tyrant was a small boss and king of glory with a lot of money. The big boss was called the king. Chapter 2193. Yu Chulin, on the other hand, managed to defeat the tyrant king amidst the cries of "Oh no." Li Moyun immediately felt a sense of crisis. He moved stealthily on the battlefield and moved towards the hero that Yu Chulin was using. However, just as he appeared, he saw that Yu Chulin's Li Bai only had a little health left. He only needed one more slash, and he would be able to kill Li Bai. Li Moyun laughed and said, I'm coming. I want both the Tyrant King and Li Bai's head. However, just as he finished speaking, he suddenly saw a string of symbols fall from above his head. Then, the hero that he was controlling, Luna, was directly controlled and was stunned. Luna could not fight back at all. System notification. Miyamoto Musashi defeated Luna. Li Bai defeated Tyrant. Li Moyun immediately shouted, D*MN, that's too despicable. Why did you sneak attack me? There's no need for a reason to sneak attack Fatty, Li Mosen announced expressionlessly as he lowered his head to fight the wild monsters. Li Moyun felt as if he had been shot in the heart. His face was full of grief and indignation as he said, I'll make you regret saying that. Hee hee. Li Mosen gave a heartless sneer and then directly stole Father Blue, which Luna relied on to survive. Li Moyun held his long sword and looked at the empty birthplace of Father Blue. He roared again, I'll go to your house to steal Father Blue. Come on, I'll leave it for you, Yu Chulin said. So, Li Moyun really went. However, as soon as he arrived, he saw Li Bai there killing small monsters. After hesitating for a moment, Li Moyun specially looked at the financial gap between the two parties. He only dared to go out after he was sure that Miyamoto Musashi was not around. Yu Chulin was not very good at playing. After he was sure that he could fight Li Bai one-on-one, he ran out with his sword. However, almost at the same time, Li Bai suddenly drew a circle to restrict Luna's movement. Then, Zhuge Liang jumped out from the bushes. Li Moyun shouted, "You guys are too much. Too much. Too much." Zhuge Liang manipulated the flashbang to cripple him. Li Jinhua laughed and said, come on, come and bully me." Li Moyun was so frightened that he hurriedly ran away. However, even though he managed to escape, his HP had been reduced to a small amount. Li Jinhua and Yu Chulin didn't know how to play the game. If it was someone who was good at controlling the game, any one of them would be able to crush him to the ground. Li Moyun angrily found a bush and returned to the city. He shouted, "It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Moyun, be careful." Oh Xiao Xiao shouted, "Miyamoto is going over." However, it was too late. System notification. Miyamoto Musashi defeated Luna. Li Moyun sniffled and said pitifully, "Can you kill someone else? You can kill both Xiao Xiao and Sister Pan Pan." "No." Li Jinhua shook her head seriously. "They're not as fat as you." His words made his friends burst into laughter. Li Moyun clicked on Yu Chulin's battle record and realized that even though Yu Chulin was not very good at playing, he was very conscious about not fooling around outside. Hence, Li Moyun egged him on. "Brother Chu, don't always stay at home. Why don't you come out and play?" Yu Chulin smiled. "You said it yourself." Li Moyun smiled and said, Yes, I said it." Li Jinhua exclaimed, "Brother Chu, don't be fooled by him. He's fooling you to kill yourself." Li Mosin also said, "You won't lose if you don't go out." When Yu Chulin heard this, he smiled slightly and said meaningfully, "Not necessarily." Chapter 2194. Everyone thought that Yu Chulin was definitely a newbie. Therefore, no one paid much attention to him. However, no one expected that not only was Yu Chulin not a newbie, but he was also very good at it. Although his mechanics still looked a little jerky, the contrast between what everyone thought was a noob at the beginning was shocking enough. Later on, Li Mosin won. Miyamoto Musashi, who was played by Li Mosin, won with a high score of 15 points. Yu Chulin's score was the lowest. Li Moyun was very unconvinced. He retorted with his hands on his hips, but very quickly, he obediently paid the bill. The weekend passed quickly. Everyone had a good time. Li Jinhua was in a good mood when she returned to school. She carried her school bag and sat down humming a tune. The surrounding boys and girls came to Li Jinhua and greeted her. Li Jinhua felt that her new classmates were really too enthusiastic. After greeting them one by one, a little girl walked over with a red face and said, "Jinhua, I know you're Senior Li Mosin's sister. Can you help me pass this letter to Senior Li?" Li Jinhua was stunned for a moment. Looking at the girl's red cheeks, she couldn't bear to refuse and quickly nodded. "Sure." The girl was wild with joy. She nodded frantically and shouted, "Then wait for me." Li Jinhua's hands were filled with little love letters. Looking at the little pink envelope and the passionate gazes from the surrounding people, she suddenly felt that she had done a very good thing. The girl quickly returned with a beautiful box in her hand. At one glance, it was obvious that it was a small gift that had been carefully prepared. The girl felt the surrounding gazes, and her face became even redder. She said, "This is a gift that I specially prepared. It's chocolate." As she said that, she quickly placed it on the table in front of Li Jinhua, as if she was afraid that she would refuse. She even said, "Please, I hope that you must pass it to Senior Li Mosin. Please, I really like Mosin, hey?" A young voice with obvious impatience sounded. "If you want to confess, don't block my seat." Li Jinhua was sitting. When she heard this voice, she looked up. Quan Jingyi looked as if he hadn't woken up yet. His expression said, "I have a bad temper. Don't provoke me. At this moment, he was frowning with a face full of impatience. He squinted his eyes as if he was looking at the back of the girl's head, but also as if he wasn't looking anywhere. He then added impatiently, "And do you know that you're so ugly? No matter who you confess to, you won't succeed." This sentence made the students in the class who were watching burst into laughter. F***CK, his mouth is too poisonous. But what he said isn't wrong. She wants the school hunk to confess to her with her looks. Where did she get her face from? But she gave me confidence. I didn't dare to confess before, but now I'm going to confess. My chances of winning are definitely higher than hers. The girl's originally blushing face immediately turned red. She pinched the side of her school uniform and ran away with an embarrassed look on her face. Quan Jingyi tossed his bag aside and sat on the chair. Just as Quan Jingyi sat down, the bell for class rang. The students who had been watching the commotion dispersed. Only a small number of girls lowered their heads and whispered to each other. Their disdainful gazes swept in the direction of the girl just now. Chapter 2195. Li Jianyue felt sorry for the girl when she saw her like this. Quan Jingyi had already picked up the book and threw it on the table. Then he lay down. Li Jianyue looked at Quan Jingyi, who acted as if nothing had happened. She felt a little indignant and whispered, "Quan Jingyi." Quan Jingyi didn't seem to hear her and didn't move. Li Jianyue knew that he could hear her voice and continued, "You're too much." Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for them to hear. Li Jianyue took out the book and opened it. Quan Jingyi finally reacted. He raised his head and glanced at her. Then he sneered, "What does it have to do with you?" Li Jianyue glared at him. This person was really too annoying. Li Jianyue felt a lump of anger in her heart. She's a girl. What can she do if you talk about her like this in front of so many people? Look at her. She's about to cry. Quan Jingyi didn't even look at that person. He glanced at Li Jianyue. What does it have to do with me that she likes to cry? She cried because of you. No. Quan Jingyi stretched lazily. She cried because of her own ugliness. Li Jianyue was speechless for a moment. The anger in her heart was even more intense. Damn it. This be *TCH. Li Jianyue had never hated someone so much since she was young. The teacher came soon. Li Jianyue had no choice but to suppress her anger and turn her head to read the book sullenly. But she was too angry. Li Jianyue couldn't bear to read a word. Li Jianyue didn't know what the teacher said in class. She held a pen and drew an ugly face. Then she wrote the words Quan Jingyi next to it. Then she made dense pockmarks on his face. Li Jianyue poked and poked for a long time, but she didn't feel comfortable. Suddenly, Quan Jingyi turned his head. Li Jianyue noticed it and turned to look. Quan Jingyi glanced at the things on her paper. Then he raised his thick eyebrows and tilted his head slightly. He said, "The teacher asked you to answer the question." Li Jianyue was a little confused. She was indeed in a daze just now. But it shouldn't be like this, right? However, when Li Jianyue turned her head to look to the side, she realized that there were indeed people looking at her. Li Jianyue looked at the pile of formulas on the blackboard and stood up silently. The math teacher was a middle-aged man with thick glasses. His white shirt was neatly tucked into his black pants. His appearance was very clean and decent, but he was an old-fashioned old cadre. When Teacher House saw Li Jianyue stand up, he pushed up his glasses and asked, "Do you have any questions?" Li Jianyue was stunned by his question. She then asked, "Didn't you ask me to answer the question?" Teacher Hao's gaze became meaningful as he looked at Quan Jingyi. Li Jianyue finally understood and looked at Quan Jingyi. She saw Quan Jingyi's black head, which was covered by curly black hair, tremble slightly. Even his shoulders were shaking. Obviously, he was smiling. Li Jianyue's face turned red. Teacher Hao said, "Student, you still have to be more serious in class. It's high school now. It's different from junior high. Some students shouldn't take pleasure in teasing other students to avoid hurting the harmony." Quan Jingyi's voice was clear and bright. "Teacher, this student secretly drew me in class." Chapter 2196. As soon as Quan Jingyi's voice fell, the students in the class seemed to have caught hold of some big gossip and began to make a ruckus. Wow, what does Li Jianrui mean by this? Damn, isn't this Senior Mosen's sister? Could it be that she likes Quan Jingyi? But it's true. Although Quan Jingyi's reputation isn't very good, he's still quite handsome. The discussions of the surrounding students quickly reached Li Jianrui's ears. Li Jianrui already felt embarrassed. Now that she was being discussed like this, she felt even more ashamed. She turned her head and glared at Quan Jingyi. She was so angry that her face turned red. Unlike her, Quan Jingyi seemed to be in a good mood. He turned his head slowly. Li Jianrui was ashamed and embarrassed, but she couldn't say anything. Soon the class ended. Li Jianrui stood up angrily and shouted at Quan Jingyi, "Are you shameless? How can you say such a thing? Who has a crush on you?" Li Jianrui had never spoken loudly. At this moment, she was angry and her voice was a little louder, but it didn't sound threatening. Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. "I didn't say such things. You said it yourself." Quan Jingyi spoke lazily. He wasn't loud. The young man's voice sounded very gentle. Immediately, the people in the class who had come to watch the commotion immediately formed a group and said, "So that's how it is. So Li Jianrui has a crush on Quan Jingyi. F***CK. You can really do whatever you want if you're handsome. But other than this face, Quan Jingyi doesn't have anything else good. Li Jianrui is also very beautiful, but why is her taste so bad?" Li Jianrui was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She slammed her fist on the table heavily. Her little face turned red and she shouted, "I don't." As she said that, her eyes turned red. She looked at Quan Jingyi and stared at him with slightly red eyes. "Why are you so annoying?" When Quan Jingyi heard this, his face seemed to be troubled. He said, "You like me one moment and hate me the next. Why are you girls so strange? I don't like you." Li Jianrui stomped her feet in anger. Her voice became much sharper because of her anger. Her eyes reddened as she said, "My 3 brothers are much better than you. Brother Chu is gentle, my brother is smart, and Brother Mosen treats me the best. Who do you think you are? I'm not blind." Quan Jingyi just wanted to tease her. He didn't expect her to refute him so seriously. Quan Jingyi was stunned for a moment. He raised his body slightly and looked at the little girl who was staring at him condescendingly. He was so angry that his face was flushed with anger. He clenched his fists tightly, as if he had done something heinous and unforgivable. At that moment, the young lady seemed to be in a hurry to prove something. She pounded the table again and said, "I, Li Jianrui, will like anyone but you. You're just a rubbish man who only knows how to bully girls. Even my younger brother knows that girls can't be bullied. You're worse than an elementary school student." Li Mayun, a primary school student, sneezed violently in his Year 2 class. All the students in the class heard what Li Jianrui said and began to shout, "So that's how it is. Is it because Quan Jingyi likes Li Jianrui and is too embarrassed to confess? So he deliberately said that she has a crush on him?" Li Jianrui's words were not very damaging, but it couldn't stop the people next to her from jeering. Chapter 2197. Quan Jingyi turned his head away and stood up from his seat. As he yawned, he raised his hands and stretched. The aura that Li Jianrui had just gathered was bumped by his lazy waist. She subconsciously dodged to the side. However, the little bit of domineering aura he had just now disappeared with this dodge. The surrounding girls suddenly became excited. Li Jianrui turned back, and the little girls pushed and shoved each other. All of them looked at Quan Jingyi with flushed faces. His eyes were practically glowing. Quan Jingyi walked out of his seat lazily. His footsteps were slow and frivolous. He raised his face slightly. Wherever he went, boys and girls subconsciously made way for him. When Quan Jingyi walked far away, the girls screamed excitedly and shouted, "Oh my God, he's so handsome." Is Quan Jingyi so handsome? He's just a delinquent, sob, sob, sob. Li Jianrui was furious. She took the book on the table and slammed it on the table. She was so angry that she sat down heavily. Bah, how could someone with such a bad character be handsome? He was even worse than a primary school student. Li Mayun, who was sitting in the grade 2 class, sneezed again. After Quan Jingyi walked out, he went directly to the big tree beside the lawn behind the teaching building. It was past 9 in the morning, and the sun was just right. The playground was on the other side. It was a quiet corner of the school. There were not many students coming and going, so no one noticed that Quan Jingyi had come to this place. He climbed up briskly and found a comfortable tree branch to lie down. Soon, the bell rang. Quan Jingyi yawned and fell asleep comfortably. Grade 1, 11. This was the class teacher's class. The class teacher's surname was Huang. It was said that she used to be the prettiest girl in the class when she was young. Later, she was severely tortured by time, and now she had become a withered flower. A naughty boy in the class gave her a nickname, Daylily. Daylily called Quan Jingyi's name several times, but no one answered. She looked up and asked with a serious face, "Is Quan Jingyi here?" A male student shouted. "He just left after class. He probably went to the toilet." "You haven't come back from the toilet yet." Daylily was already showing signs of getting angry. Someone else said, "Maybe it's constipation." The class roared with laughter. Daylily looked at Li Jianyue and saw the little girl's round and cute little face. Her expression softened a little, and she asked, "Classmate Li, you are Quan Jingyi's deskmate. Do you know where he went?" How would she know? She just quarreled with Quan Jingyi. A male classmate chimed in. That's right. Quan Jingyi almost made the girl cry. He's so ungentlemanly and shameless. He actually said that she likes him. I think he likes Li Jianyue himself. Ha ha. The more Daylily listened, the darker her face became. She reached out and slapped the podium, shouting, "Silence! The more you talk, the more outrageous it is. How long has it been since the start of school? How can you just randomly find a partner for your classmates? What will happen in the future?" But when he thought about it, he felt that it was incredible. When Li Jianyue entered school, her parents gave her a generous gift. She wanted to take good care of her daughter. How could she let her fall in love at this time? Daylily couldn't stand it anymore. After arranging for them to study, she asked Li Jianyue to talk to her alone. She also asked someone to find out where Quan Jingyi went. Li Jianyue, angry, who's in love? Li Mosin, serious, no, you must change positions. Chapter 2198. After Li Jianyue came back from chatting with the homeroom teacher, her face was sullen for the entire class. Li Jianyue looked like Su Qianxi. She was fair and tender, and her whole body exuded an aura of spirituality. At this time, even if she had a straight face, it was still particularly attractive. After the morning class, Quan Jingyi did not come back again. Lunch break soon arrived. The boys in the class were fighting, and the girls went to the toilet in groups of 3 to 5. Li Jianyue did not have many friends in the class. She packed her bag and subconsciously looked at the window. Every time the last class in the morning ended, Li Mosin would come and look for her. But today, she did not know if he was busy or delayed, but he had not come until now. Li Jianyue stood up and met a male classmate. The male classmate's face was a little red. He looked at Li Jianyue and said, "Li Jianyue, I have something to tell you." Go ahead. It's not convenient here. Come with me." The male classmate looked down at Li Jianyue's hand on the table. It seemed like he wanted to do something, but he did not do anything. He turned around and left. Li Jianyue did not take it to heart and quickly followed him to the back of the school building. The place here was empty and the sun was blazing. The wind blew through the hall, and Li Jianyue's little skirt swayed with it. A few strands of her hair were also blown into a mess. The male classmate held a small envelope in his hand and handed it to her with both hands. As if emboldening himself, he said in a slightly loud voice, "Li Jianyue, a friend of mine asked me to give this to you. His name is inside. I hope that after you see the contents, you can give me an answer." Oh, Li Jianyue looked down at the white envelope in his hand. It looked bare and there was nothing written on it. She reached out and took it. Li Jianyue had no intention of opening it. She asked, "Is this the matter?" The male classmate looked very disappointed with Li Jianyue's reaction. Then, he did not know where to put his hands and wiped them on his trousers. Then, he took out his cell phone and said, "Can you add me on WeChat?" "Sure." Li Jianyue didn't suspect anything. She took his phone and keyed her number. Li Jinyue's WeChat nickname was newly changed. It was called Buddhist Beauty, Little Son. Just as Li Jinyue finished typing the string of numbers, the phone in her pocket vibrated. Without a doubt, it was Limosin. It sounded a little noisy on Limosin's side. It was the voices of his classmates around him. "Ursu, where did you go?" "Oh, nothing. A classmate was looking for me just now." "Where are you? Why are you so late?" Li Jinyue's voice was crisp and clear. She didn't hide her rebuke at all. Her sweet voice made the male student in front of her blush as he looked up at her. Limosin sounded like he was in a good mood. "I just encountered something pleasant today. Let's go. I'll treat you to dinner to celebrate." She quickly gave him the address and hung up the phone. Then, she looked at the male classmate and smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I have to go eat with my brother. I'll be leaving first." The little boy blushed. "Yes, yes." Li Jinyue quickly ran away briskly. The little boy looked at Li Jinyue's back. The heart in his chest was beating especially happily. Just as he was intoxicated, a sudden gust of wind whistled above his head. A huge shadow instantly shrouded him. The little boy was so scared that he screamed. He took a big step back and fell to the ground. He turned his head and realized that it was a person. After taking a closer look, he asked, "Quan Jingyi?" Quan Jingyi was sleepy. After yawning, he turned his head and looked over lazily. Then, he walked over and looked down at him. The little boy swallowed his saliva and stammered, "What do you want?" Chapter 2199. When the little boy saw this, he was a little confused. He subconsciously covered the phone in his pocket and asked, "What do you want?" The midday sun was a little bright. Quan Jingyi narrowed his eyes slightly and looked down at him with a faint smile. He looked a little lazy and a little helpless. He asked, "Are you going to give it to me or not?" The little boy looked at Quan Jingyi and wanted to say no. But when he looked at Quan Jingyi's face, he subconsciously thought of the arrogant rumors about Quan Jingyi. His whole body couldn't help but tense up a little. The words of refusal were on the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed them back down. He pinched his pocket and then turned his head. Finally, he took out his phone and pushed it forward. "You have to tell me what you want." Quan Jingyi looked at him and said lazily, "What are you afraid of? I just want to add you on WeChat." The little boy couldn't believe it. He looked up and looked at the tree that Quan Jingyi had just jumped down from. His face turned red and he said, "Did you see everything?" Quan Jingyi narrowed his eyes and looked at him. "See what? You're confessing to a girl here and you don't dare to say it clearly. You have to say that someone else gave you a love letter?" The little boy's face turned even redder. Quan Jingyi sneered and said, "Don't worry. That Li Jinyue is so slow. She won't find out that the person who gave her the love letter is you." It would have been better if Quan Jingyi hadn't said it. The little boy immediately became a little worried. Yes, Li Jinyue looked quite innocent. If he said that, it would be difficult for her to find out that the person was him. Just as he was feeling bewildered, he suddenly heard Quan Jingyi say, "Hey." The little boy suddenly came back to his senses and looked up. Quan Jingyi waved his phone in front of his eyes and said, "Unlock it." "Oh, okay." He pressed his fingerprint obediently. After the little boy unlocked the phone, he saw Quan Jingyi standing lazily with his head down and tapping on his phone. Quan Jingyi had just taken his phone and opened WeChat. Coincidentally, as soon as he took it, a new friend notification popped up. "Beautiful Buddha-like girl, little son. We're already friends. Come and have a chat." Quan Jingyi narrowed his eyes and looked up at the trembling little boy in front of him. The little boy was wearing a pair of thin glasses, and when he was stared at like this, he immediately lowered his head. After a few seconds, Quan Jingyi tossed his phone back to him. The little boy immediately checked. There were a total of 2 new additions and notifications. Before he could react, Quan Jingyi turned around and prepared to leave. The little boy looked at Quan Jingyi and said unwillingly, "Did you add Li Jinyue's WeChat?" Without turning his head, Quan Jingyi said lazily, "Don't you know how to read the records yourself?" Hearing that, the little boy immediately lowered his head. He noticed that the 2 new friend requests were the same classic greeting. "We're already friends. Let's chat." He breathed a sigh of relief and put the phone back in his pocket. At that time, he had not studied WeChat thoroughly. In their era, most people used QQ. Therefore, he didn't know that WeChat had the function to delete a single message. By the time he found out, it was already too late. When he returned home in the evening, he happily took out his phone and found that Li Jianyue had posted a WeChat moments. Beautiful Buddha-like girl, little son. Wow, mom cooked personally again. How stupid, the attached picture was a very exquisite home-cooked dish with 9 squares. The last picture was a selfie of the little girl with a kitten emoji. It looked very pink and cute. Seeing that it was posted less than a minute ago, he immediately liked it. However, the next second, a new notification popped up. Chapter 2200. Quan Jingyi had liked it. It was time to post on WeChat Moments. When did Quan Jingyi add Li Jianyue? What the F asterisk CK? The little boy's heart suddenly felt like it had been hit 100,000 times. So, Quan Jingyi took his phone over to add Li Jianyue's WeChat, right? So, in fact, Quan Jingyi also liked Li Jianyue, right? If Quan Jingyi also liked Li Jianyue, with Quan Jingyi's qualifications, he was really completely inferior to him. His heart instantly felt as if it was scratching his heart and lungs. If he had known this, he would never have let Quan Jingyi take his phone. After Li Jianyue finished eating, she touched her little belly and leaned on the sofa with a satisfied expression. Li Mosen was specially invited to be a representative of the school basketball team today, representing the school to participate in the city-level high school basketball game. Li Jianyue thought about it and decided to post a WeChat Moments to congratulate him. As soon as she picked up her phone, she saw many new notifications on WeChat Moments. Xiao Xiao, I want to eat too. Pan Pan, Aunt's cooking is really good. I envy you, cry. There were also all kinds of envious comments from other classmates and playmates in childhood. The rest were all likes. Among the 3 or 4 lines of likes, Li Jianyue saw a simple and fresh profile picture. It was a comic boy in red clothes with his head tilted. He had a cigarette in his mouth and wore a gray hat on his head. He looked like he was standing lazily. There was a letter written on his clothes. Why? Li Jianyue recognized who it was at a glance. In the afternoon, she added 2 new friends, one first and one later. The one who added her later was the one who sent her the love letter. The other was the male student who helped to pass the message, which was the boy in the afternoon. And this comic boy in the red shirt was undoubtedly the one who had sent her the love letter. The content of that love letter was actually very simple and very old-fashioned. There were 5 or 6 lines of words, which read, "Dear Li Jianyue, hello. Maybe you don't know what my name is, but from the moment you enter the class, I have been deeply attracted to you. I never knew that a girl could be so cute." She smiled, moved, and even when she was angry, she looked like a goddess in my heart. I think this is love. You have succeeded in breaking into my heart. Li Jianyue, I like you very much. Please be with me. A boy who has a crush on you. Yang Ziheo. In fact, Li Jianyue had no impression of this name at all. However, her upbringing from a young age made her feel that it would be very embarrassing and impolite to say such words in front of others. After thinking about it, Li Jianyue decided to reject him tactfully. She didn't plan to fall in love in high school, and she didn't have any interest in a strange boy. He clicked on the person's chat box, clicked on the word, sent a message, and wrote, "Hello, student Yang. I'm happy that you like me, but I won't fall in love. I hope we can learn and improve together in the future." In the end, he even sent a handshake emoji. After confirming that there were no problems, Li Jianyue sent it out. Ding Dong. Quan Jingyi was drying his hair after showering. His phone vibrated as he passed by the table. Seeing such a long string of words, Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, he understood what Li Jianyue meant. This guy really thought of him as the so-called friend of the male student in the afternoon. Chapter 2201. The inexplicable reply made Li Jianyue a little confused. He looked up and down at the words he had sent. Between the lines, it felt like he was rejecting her. How was it gentle? Before Li Jianyue could think clearly, she received another message from the other side. This time, Yang Ziheo said, "I can't help but fall for you." Li Jianyue was speechless. Were all boys so good at talking nowadays? If they could fall for him like this, she really didn't know what kind of attitude she had to use to stop the boy from falling for her. Li Jianrui thought about it and decided not to reply. If she didn't reply, there would be no hope, right? When Li Mosin came out of the shower, he saw Li Jianrui sitting on the sofa at home. She looked distressed and was holding her phone. Li Jianrui seemed to notice that Li Mosin had come out and looked up. The distressed expression on her face was even more obvious. She said, "Brother Mosin, have you ever liked a girl?" Li Mosin almost choked on his saliva. His first reaction to her question was, did she sense his thoughts about her? So was this a test? But as soon as this thought came up, Li Mosin was denied by his own rationality. Impossible. Li Jianrui couldn't have this kind of intelligence. Li Mosin calmed himself down and asked, "Why are you suddenly asking this?" Li Jianrui didn't notice Li Mosin's strangeness at all. She said with a bitter face, "No, I'm just asking." Li Mosin sat down calmly and asked, "Why do you suddenly want to ask?" Well, Li Jianrui looked at Li Mosin with her head tilted and said, "Honestly, someone wrote me a love letter today." Li Mosin stopped drying his hair and looked at her. Li Jianrui continued, "Didn't you look for me later? After we added each other on WeChat, I rejected him on WeChat. Then he said this to me." Li Jianrui showed the phone to Li Mosin. There were only a few sentences in the chat. Li Mosin finished reading it at a glance. Finally, his gaze fell on the name that Li Jianrui had given this person, Yang Zihao. Li Mosin remembered this name and looked up at the little girl in front of him. How do you want to reply? The last message was sent by Yang Zihao. Li Jianrui had no intention of replying. Li Jianrui was confused and said, "I don't know either. I'll reply for you." Li Jianrui nodded immediately. He moved his butt away a little and patted the spot beside him. Then he sat down naturally. Li Jianrui's little head immediately leaned over and looked at Li Mosin's slender fingers typing. "Haha." Li Jianrui looked at it and felt that something was wrong. These two words, together with the exclamation mark, felt like a curse. Just as she was about to say something, Li Mosin continued, "Oh, then you can fall for it." Then Li Mosin dragged the WeChat account into the blacklist. Quan Jingyi, who had received these words, was drinking water. Seeing this, his eyelids twitched. Even the act of drinking water became a little difficult. How could Li Jianrui say such a thing? You really can't judge a book by its cover. Quan Jingyi replied with an ellipsis. Then a red warning sign appeared. You are no longer a friend of this person. Please add him or her again. Quan Jingyi. Chapter 2202. Li Mosin looked at Li Mosin's actions in a daze and said, "Brother Mosin, that's not very good." Li Mosin looked up at her and asked, "Why not?" Isn't that too rude?" Li Mosin raised his eyelids and said, "Polite? If you are polite to this kind of person, then he will pester you to the end. Do you want to be pestered by him?" "I don't think so." Li Jianrui didn't feel that this person had brought her much trouble at all. She continued, "In any case, he is my classmate. If I really blocked him like this, then what should I do during the class gatherings in the future? Also, students in the same class will always see each other. That would be very awkward." Li Mosin looked at her with a somewhat helpless expression and said, "Silly girl, don't worry. It's okay. You are doing the right thing." Li Jianrui wrinkled her nose and said, "But I don't like doing this." "Brother Mosin, return my phone to me." Li Mosin raised his hand and pointed his finger at the tip of her nose. He said, "I'm doing this for your own good. You probably don't know, right?" "What?" Li Jianrui asked. Li Mosin said, "I've encountered such a thing before." Li Jianrui nodded. Li Mosin's appearance was really too outstanding. She was already used to such things. A pair of big and round eyes looked at him and asked, "And then? Is that how you solved it?" Li Mosin shook his head. "No, I didn't solve it like that at that time." So, at that time, the girl took advantage of the situation and went around saying that I gave her a chance. She even announced that she was my girlfriend. Li Jianrui's eyes widened in disbelief. "It can't be. Did you actually agree to it?" Li Mosin looked helpless. "Of course not. I said that I won't fall in love at such a young age." Li Jianrui immediately nodded. "Yes, it's not good to fall in love at such a young age. Dad and Mom hate it, so we can't fall in love at such a young age. After Li Jianhua finished speaking, she continued to ask, "What happened next?" After that, I was harassed by that female classmate. Li Mosen continued after a pause. For quite a long time. And then? Later, during an outdoor activity, I told her not to do this. It would make me hate her very much. And then? Then, she started crying, saying that I let her down, that I cheated on her feelings, and that I must expose my bad behavior. When Li Mosen talked about this, he looked a little angry, but he felt more helpless. If I had rejected her directly at that time, and didn't even leave her contact information, things would not have happened later. Li Jianhua had never thought that there would be such a shameless person in this world. However, when she thought about it, she felt that it wasn't right. How could a girl be so shameless? Li Jianhua thought for a moment and asked, "Brother Mosen, is what you said true? Why would I lie to you? That girl is still my classmate. All my friends know about this. I'll get them to tell you at lunch tomorrow." "Wow," Li Jianhua exclaimed. "What about the truth? Brother Mosen, did you play with her feelings? I just didn't delete her contact information." Chapter 2203. It was terrifying to think about it. Who would have thought of such a thing? It was impossible to guard against it. Sure enough, the outside world was too messy. Li Jianhua decided that for safety's sake, it was better to add her classmate's WeChat. Li Jianhua thought about it and blocked his friend's WeChat as well. Li Mosen was very pleased. "You're worth teaching." Li Jianhua chuckled and quickly returned to her room with her phone. Yang Zihao pondered for a long time before he decided to send a WeChat message to the girl he liked to make his presence known. He thought about it for a long time and thought of many classic lines, such as, "Hello, I am Yang Zihao, your classmate, have you read today's letter? What do you think? Li Jianhua, I am Yang Zihao, I hope you can consider my feelings," and so on. But in the end, he still forced out 2 words, "hello." 2 simple words, polite and not rude. After thinking for a long time, he finally pressed the send button. However, the next moment, a long string of words popped up. "You are no longer a friend of the other person. Please add him, her again." Yang Zihao's, full of anticipation, suddenly froze, turning into a big ice cube that had been hit hard. In an instant, it cracked into pieces. This. I've been blocked." He immediately opened her information. Indeed, there was no one on her WeChat moments. Yang Zihao's heart turned cold. How could this be? Li Jianhua seemed to be quite easy to get along with. Why did she suddenly block him? Could it be that she had just seen the love letter, and after seeing it, she directly came over to blacklist him? The more Yang Zihao thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He clutched his chest in agony. That day, he couldn't sleep. The next day, when he entered the classroom with a pair of big panda eyes, there were only a few people in the class. Li Jianhua hadn't arrived yet. Yang Zihao waited for a long time. When almost everyone in the class had arrived, he saw Li Jianhua slowly walking over. When she walked over, the gazes of both boys and girls were attracted to her. Her face was rosy, and she seemed to be in a good mood. She carried her school bag and walked in while humming a tune. She sat down in her seat. Yang Zihao's eyes were glued to the screen. Suddenly, he felt his eyes burning up. She was really a girl who attracted a lot of attention. How could he be worthy of such a dazzling girl? Yang Zihao couldn't help but look away. He lowered his head, took off his glasses, and wiped the corners of his eyes. When he put on his glasses again, he suddenly saw a black shadow in front of him. The sudden appearance of this figure startled Yang Zihao. She looked up and saw Quan Jingyi hanging his school bag on his shoulder. He looked like a carefree young man. Quan Jingyi was a real delinquent. He was a delinquent in every way. He was clearly wearing his school uniform, but his entire temperament was like a hooligan's, making people feel that they didn't dare to provoke him. Yang Zihao didn't want to have anything to do with this kind of person. He mustered up his courage and asked, "What's the matter?" Quan Jingyi was a little tall. When he heard this, he bent down and asked in a low voice, "Hey, did she block you?" Yang Zihao felt as though his heart had been stabbed. But soon after, he understood. He stomped his feet in anger and said, "You're the one who did this?" Quan Jingyi straightened his back. The smile on his lips was still there. He raised his eyebrows and looked as though he had expected it. Then, without saying anything, he turned around and prepared to return to his seat. Chapter 2204. Yang Zaheo's voice was especially loud, and he had no intention of hiding it. Quan Jingyi hadn't been scolded like that in a long time. His eyebrows twitched, and he stopped in his tracks. Just as he was about to turn around, something hit his head. Quan Jingyi was caught off guard, and his cheek was scratched by a piece of paper. Cries of surprise came from all around. Everyone's eyes focused on them. Among them was Li Jinrui. Li Jinrui looked sideways and saw that the young man who sent her the letter yesterday was looking at Quan Jingyi angrily. As for Quan Jingyi, his originally carefree look had completely disappeared at this time. Instead, it was replaced by a dark expression. It was obvious that he seemed to be angry at a glance. Li Jinrui was used to seeing Quan Jingyi's lazy look. Seeing him like this, she felt that he was a little scary. Obviously, she wasn't the only one who felt that way. The girls next to her had similar reactions. Quan Jingyi turned around and looked at Yang Zaheo. Suddenly, his hand loosened and his bag fell to the ground. Then, he suddenly took a step forward. In the next second, Yang Zaheo screamed in fear. Ah! His scream wasn't loud, but revealed his nervousness. You want to hit me? Quan Jingyi picked up his collar. The high school student's overly developed height exerted a strong sense of oppression in front of the short Yang Zaheo. Yang Zaheo's entire body was lifted up. The tips of his feet could only touch the ground. He looked embarrassed and disheveled. Yang Zaheo glanced at Li Jinrui out of the corner of his eye. His pale face turned red. He straightened his back and shouted, Quan Jingyi, don't think that I'm afraid of you. You despicable person. You only know how to do some. Ah! Before he could finish his words, he received a heavy punch on his cheek. The children who went to school here were all young masters and daughters who were used to living like princes from a young age, or they were exceptional students who excelled in both conduct and academics. Yang Zaheo happened to be both. How could such a weak and gentle little chicken be a match for such a big man? After the punch, Yang Zaheo was already a little dizzy. At that moment, the bell rang for class. Quan Jingyi had no intention of letting go. He said, Are you still going to scold me? Isn't your mouth very good? That's it. Yang Zaheo was embarrassed and in pain. Tears were about to fall from his eyes. He glared at him with reddened eyes. The look in his eyes under his gold-rimmed glasses was especially fierce. Quan Jingyi sneered and poked his face twice with his finger. Are you glaring at me? His eyes are so powerful. Four-eyed people are indeed different. Some of the students next to him started laughing. Li Jianyue couldn't stand it anymore and said, Quan Jingyi, don't go overboard. Quan Jingyi looked over and pursed his lips. What's the matter? Didn't I just send you a love letter? Did you upgrade me to your boyfriend? These words set off a huge wave in the class. Love letter? Wow, 6666. He actually sent a love letter to Li Jianyue. It can't be. That little four eyes? Ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. How could Li Jianyue possibly like him? When Yang Zaheo heard this, he was so ashamed and angry that he could barely lift his head. He pushed Quan Jingyi with both hands and shouted angrily, That's enough. Don't talk nonsense, you despicable man. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Chapter 2205. Those words were too hurtful. Yang Zaheo was young. When he heard those words, he felt like he was about to burst into flames. His small and thin body suddenly rushed out from behind the table and looked like he was about to hit someone. But Quan Jingyi was tall and easily blocked his fist. He looked at him with a faint smile. Quan Jingyi didn't move at all. He didn't even speak. But his gaze was enough to make Yang Zaheo feel insulted. Yang Zaheo shouted. However, because he looked small and skinny, he wasn't very intimidating. Instead, he gave off the illusion that he was a child fighting with an adult. When the students in the class saw this, they thought it was funny. Quan Jingyi didn't move at all. He just stood there and blocked Yang Zaheo. There was a look of helplessness and mockery on his face. It was more like a cat playing with a mouse. Li Jianyue saw it clearly. She also knew that there was a huge difference in strength. It wasn't just a difference in height. It was a fundamental difference in their aura. That's right. How could an obedient student win against a delinquent? What are you doing? A middle-aged man's voice was heard. It was the dean. His roar sent everyone back to their seats. Everyone moved quickly. However, Quan Jingyi was still confronting Yang Zihao. At that moment, Yang Zihao didn't look too good. His eyes were red, and he felt humiliated and indignant. When the dean saw this, he immediately made a decision. Quan Jingyi, why did you bully your classmate? Quan Jingyi found it funny. He turned his head and shouted, Dean, when did you see me bully my classmate? It was this kid who bullied me, okay? The dean's face darkened. How could he bully you? All of you, follow me to the office. The class was in an uproar. It was little Four-Eyed who started it. Quan Jingyi didn't even do anything. Dean, this is too unfair. But it's normal. Quan Jingyi doesn't have a good reputation. If I were the dean, I would definitely be the first to suspect Quan Jingyi. But Quan Jingyi wasn't bullied. If you ask me, this little Four-Eyed is overestimating himself. He actually wanted to fight with him? Quan Jingyi was the champion of the youth mixed martial arts team in junior high. When Li Jianyue heard this, she couldn't help but look sideways at the empty seat beside her. Quan Jingyi turned out to be so powerful. However, no matter how powerful he was, it was a fact that he had a bad temper and bad character. She had originally thought that Quan Jingyi and Yang Zihao would return after the next class. Who knew that they wouldn't return to the classroom until the second class? A group of male students ran to the headmaster's office to eavesdrop. When they came back, they vividly described how little Four Eyes was crying his eyes out. They asked him what he was doing, but he refused to say. It was said that he even called his parents. Quan Jingyi's father was the mayor. He was very busy, but he still took some time out of his busy schedule to come to school. After the second class, Li Jianyue did not understand the math questions. She brought her textbooks and draft paper to ask the teacher. When she walked past the hallway of the classroom office with the books and drafts in her arms, the door to the director's office opened. Chapter 2206. Quan Jingyi probably didn't expect to see her so suddenly. After being stunned for a moment, he turned his face slightly, as if to block the slap mark on his face. But soon, Quan Jingyi turned back again as if he didn't see Li Jianyue and walked out. Quan Jingyi, Li Jianyue stopped him. Did you not explain clearly? The teacher doesn't know the situation. I could be a witness for you. It's obvious that you didn't cause trouble first. Quan Jingyi's footsteps paused slightly. Then, he snorted disdainfully. Then, he said in an ethereal voice, There's no need. It was just 3 words, but it sounded as casual and lazy as ever, as if he didn't care about it all. Li Jianyue looked at his back that was too well-developed for his age in year 1 and felt inexplicably uncomfortable. She turned and went in the headmaster's office and knocked on the door. Come in. The headmaster's voice came. Li Jianyue carefully opened the door and walked in. At a glance, she saw the headmaster, another couple, and a middle-aged man who looked more elegant. The couple looked very young. In front of them stood the male classmate who had helped his friend deliver the love letter yesterday. However, the male classmate's eyes looked red. Even the pair of glasses couldn't hide his sadness. When he saw it was Li Jianyue, he lowered his head and rubbed his hands together. He looked a little timid. When the parents behind him saw Li Jianyue, they took a second look. One of the parents said, This female classmate looks a little familiar. I think I've seen her somewhere before. Then he asked Li Jianyue, What's your father's name? Li Jianyue was also used to such a scene. She answered easily, Hello, uncle. My father is Li Siqing. The answer was, My father is Li Siqing, instead of, My father is Li Siqing. Although there was only a difference of 1 word between the two, the meaning was very different. Hearing this, the middle-aged man also looked over. He looked at her calmly and said, So you're Mr. Li's daughter. You look very similar to your mother. Li Jianyue smiled. The headmaster pushed his glasses and looked at Li Jianyue. He asked kindly, Student Li, why are you looking for me? Li Jianyue was still holding the math book in her hand. The headmaster continued, Your math teacher's office is next door. Li Jianyue nodded her head and said, I know, Director. It's just that I feel the need to help explain that what happened in the classroom just now was not entirely Quan Jingyi's fault. When Yang Zihao heard Li Jianyue's words, he looked shocked. He pinched the hem of his school uniform and looked at Li Jianyue. He bit his lower lip and didn't say anything. Li Jianyue noticed his gaze and had a rough idea of what was going on. She was a little angry and said, Actually, this student had a conflict with Quan Jingyi first. Then, he went to hit Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi didn't fight back. And then, enough. A young man's voice came from outside. Li Jianyue turned around and saw a tall figure standing at the door against the light. His hand was holding the handle of the office door, and his expression was calm. He looked at Li Jianyue and said, What has it got to do with you? I didn't ask you to be nosy. Li Jianyue was stunned. I'm helping you explain. You didn't hit anyone. Why? Why did you want to be beaten? Chapter 22:07. His words made the face of the middle-aged man, who looked more refined in the office, change slightly. When Li Jianyue heard this, she felt a little sorry for him. After Quan Jingyi said this, he looked down at Li Jianyue and reached out to press her head. Let's go. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you so enthusiastic? Li Jianyue was a little annoyed from being pressed down. She retorted, Do you think I want to? It's all because you're too annoying. That's why everyone wronged you. If you were a good person, would people not believe you? At the end of the day, it's because of your usual behavior. For example, right now, I want to help you explain so that you won't be wronged. Shouldn't you thank me gratefully? How dare you blame me for being a busybody? My kindness is not rewarded. Quan Jingyi sneered and didn't say anything else. He turned around and prepared to leave. Wait a minute, the middle-aged man said. Li Jianyue looked back and found that the man looked similar to Quan Jingyi. He should be Quan Jingyi's father. Quan Jingyi's father was the new mayor of Kingstown. His name was Quan Jingxing. Quan Jingxing looked more cultured. He looked like a gentle uncle. If she hadn't seen the big palm print on Quan Jingyi's face with her own eyes, Li Jianyue probably wouldn't have thought that he would hit someone like that. Quan Jingxing walked over and reached out to put his hand on Quan Jingyi's shoulder. Quan Jingyi stood there lazily, as if his bones had been pulled out. He didn't react when his shoulder was put on. Quan Jingxing put on a stern face and bellowed in a low voice, Don't stand properly. Stand properly. Quan Jingyi straightened his body and turned to look at his father with a faint smile. He said, What do you want? His tone was lazy and sounded sloppy. It was really infuriating. Li Jianyue thought that if someone responded like this when she was talking to him, she would definitely be furious. However, Quan Jingxing was much calmer than she had imagined. He only looked at Quan Jingyi deeply, and there seemed to be guilt in his eyes. It was very faint, but it was enough to move people. He said, Xiao Yi, since you were wronged, why didn't you explain clearly? Everyone in the office, including Yang Zihao, his parents, and the director, tensed up when they heard this. In fact, this matter had already been concluded a while ago. The conclusion was that Quan Jingyi bullied a classmate, and Quan Jingyi needed to apologize to Yang Zihao. However, Quan Jingyi's attitude was very tough. Not only did he refuse to let go, but he also faced the teacher in a provocative manner. Such an attitude easily angered Quan Jingxing. Quan Jingxing seemed to be unable to let go of his pride. Without saying a word, he gave Quan Jingyi a big slap. Quan Jingyi pursed his lips and turned to walk out of the office, ignoring everyone's reaction. At this moment, Li Jianyue came in. According to her, the result seemed to be different. Quan Jingxing's attitude now was undoubtedly to turn the tables for Quan Jingyi. Yang Zihao's mother was very angry and said, So according to what you're saying, my son bullied him? Your son is so tall and strong. It can't be that my son went looking for trouble first, right? Seeing this, the director hurriedly said, What exactly happened? I think there must be some misunderstanding. Why don't we listen to the two children's explanation? Chapter 22:08. Explain? Now that Li Jianyue was here, was it still his turn to explain? Looking at them, they seemed to know Li Jianyue very well. Yang Zihao's heart raced. He pinched the hem of his school uniform and wanted to look at Li Jianyue, but he couldn't lift his head. Quan Jingxiang frowned unhappily when he heard the dean's words. He turned to look at Yang Zaheo and his parents, who were standing behind him. Since my son didn't bully your son, doesn't that mean your son is lying? Shouldn't you seek justice for my son as well? He said. When Yang Zaheo's parents heard this, they said, if it's really like what this female student said, then we will certainly make our son apologize. But my son would never do such a thing. Yang Zaheo had been an obedient boy since he was young. How could he bully his classmates? How could he lie? The one who lied was definitely that delinquent. It couldn't be their son. Yang Zaheo's parents were very confident. They were also very confident in their child. Li Jianyue was angered by their attitude and said, but this is what I saw. Would I cover up for Quan Jingyi to bully another student? But Yang Zaheo suddenly spoke. He didn't lift his head. He pinched the hem of his school uniform and said, you like Quan Jingyi, don't you? When Li Jianyue heard this, she couldn't believe it. What nonsense are you talking about? Yang Zaheo pinched the hem of his shirt. When he thought about how he had been blacklisted on WeChat, he felt terrible. He decided to go all out. He gritted his teeth and said, you know it yourself. Everyone in the class is saying that you like Quan Jingyi. If that wasn't the case, why would you come here and say such things? Li Jianyue was furious. She clenched her fists and said, nonsense. How could I? Enough. Quan Jingyi looked at Yang Zaheo coldly. This is embarrassing, student Yang. The courage that Yang Zaheo had mustered up was like a balloon that had been poked. It collapsed in an instant. His face flushed red. He looked up at Quan Jingyi and realized that he was looking at him with an ugly expression. Quan Jingyi said, I didn't intend to hold it against you, so I didn't bother to explain. But you just had to step on my bottom line. Yang Zaheo's heartbeat quickened. Fear and nervousness flashed across his face. He stammered. We all know what the truth is. I don't want to argue with you, so don't pester me. Quan Jingyi said openly. If I did it, I won't deny it. But if I didn't do it, I won't apologize. Classmate Yang, Li Jianyue only came to explain to me out of goodwill. You don't have to drag her down with you. After all, you wrote her a love letter. Love letter? This was the director's office. The teachers and parents were all present. Hearing these two key words, the parents' faces changed slightly. Yang Zaheo was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He immediately jumped up and shouted, I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Li Jianyue was also confused. Wasn't it his friend who wrote her the love letter? How did it become this person? Quan Jingyi sneered. You know very well whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Chapter 2209. How did I threaten a classmate? Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows. I was just communicating normally with student Yang. Is that a threat? Why is the threshold for threats so low now? Enough, Quan Jingxiang said. I believe that student Li was not the only one who saw what happened. Dean Xie, what do you think we should do? Dean Xie complained in her heart. In their hearts, Quan Jingyi was a delinquent. So when the dean saw the situation, she immediately felt that it was Quan Jingyi's fault. However, now that Li Jianyue had suddenly stepped forward, the situation had fallen into an awkward situation. It wasn't Quan Jingyi's fault? Then wasn't the slap that Mayor Quan gave him wrongly? Was it for nothing? That's true. But since it wasn't student Quan who did it, why didn't he explain? Yang Zaheo's mother asked. Quan Jingyi smiled. This kind of thing has happened many times since I was young. If I had to explain everything, wouldn't I be exhausted? Moreover, my credibility with you is almost in the negatives. Even if I explained, would you believe me? His words made all the parents speechless. Yes, would they believe him? Most people would only think that Quan Jingyi was just looking for an excuse to deceive them. So, he simply didn't say anything and didn't explain anything. When Quan Jingxiang heard his son's words, he felt a little uncomfortable. He said, so you simply don't explain? It's a useless struggle. There's no point in doing it, Quan Jingyi said carelessly. No matter what happens now, you've already hit him. I should be able to leave. Dean Xie felt that it was better to resolve this matter behind closed doors. Now that Quan Jingyi left, the truth of the matter couldn't be clarified. However, Just as she was about to speak, Quan Jingyi had already turned around. Dean Xie hurriedly called out to him, "Wait a moment, the matter isn't clear yet." As expected, Quan Jingyi stopped. However, he only turned back to look at her. Then, he turned to look at Li Jianrui and reached out to grab her hand. Without a word, he walked towards the door. Li Jianrui was shocked. She subconsciously looked back at the parents behind her and smiled awkwardly as a greeting. Then, she was dragged away by Quan Jingyi. After they walked out of the director's office, Li Jianrui hurriedly retracted her hand and said, "How can you be like this? You don't even explain yourself when others misunderstand you. Everyone says that you're a delinquent. If this is how you get your reputation as a delinquent, then you're being wronged." It was not fair at all. Just because of his bad reputation, they could directly convict him? Li Jianrui felt very angry. However, the person who was standing in front of her didn't seem to care at all. This made her even angrier. Quan Jingyi smiled faintly and said, "I didn't expect you to be so righteous. You've turned into a heroine of justice. Are you going to support the weak? You can still laugh." "I'm so angry. Just now, that male classmate even said those words to frame me, slandering me for liking you. How could such words be said so casually?" She hated Quan Jingyi. Although this hatred had dissipated a lot after the scene, just now, she still hated him. She didn't hate him less just because she felt sorry for him. Li Jianrui had been the little princess of the family since she was young. She didn't know how to hide her emotions. At this moment, all her emotions were written on her face. She glared at Quan Jingyi and pouted and clenched her fists. He didn't need to listen to what she wanted to say next to be able to see what she was thinking at a glance. To be honest, she looked so stupid that it was cute. Quan Jingyi couldn't help but laugh softly. He reached out and patted her head. He said, "All right, I'm not that weak. I've been used to it since I was young. On the other hand, if I clarify everything, he'll be in trouble." Li Jianrui's eyes widened. "Well, actually, it's better for others to be in trouble than for you to be in trouble. It's just a slap." Quan Jingyi used his tongue to touch the inner wall of his cheek. "It's not that bad." "That's not bad." Li Jianrui subconsciously covered her face. "Well, if I get hit, I think I'll cry." Quan Jingyi's smile widened. He couldn't help but think, "Do I need you to think? I don't even need to think to know that you'll cry." Thinking of this, Quan Jingyi shook his head. He turned around and said, "Go back to class." "Oh, what about you? Delinquents won't be in the mood for class if they get hit." As he spoke, he turned around and waved his hand at Li Jianrui. Then, he slowly walked away with lazy steps. Li Jianrui felt that he was too much. He was so confident in skipping class. But she also wanted to skip class. However, this thought could only remain in her mind. Soon, Li Jianrui returned to the classroom. After half a day of classes, Li Mosin went to class 11 to look for Li Jianrui, as usual. Zhong Yikuan and Lu Yuanyang followed behind him. The female students in class 11 were all looking forward to this moment. When they saw Li Mosin, their eyes widened and they pushed and shoved each other. Their eyes were filled with hearts. Li Mosin was already used to this. He asked her, "What do you want to eat for lunch?" When Li Jianrui heard this, she replied casually, "Anything is fine." "Hey." Zhonghua looked at Li Jianrui and said, "Why is little sister so distracted today? What are you thinking about?" "Ah." Li Jianrui looked up and said, "Nothing." Lu Yuanyang came over enthusiastically and said, "Little sister, stay and practice basketball with us after school. I'll let you see how valiant your brother Yang is." "Go away." Zhonghua pushed him. "You're valiant? Don't listen to him, little sister. In our school's basketball team, the best player is your brother. As for second place, it's definitely me. What does this guy have to do with it?" When Lu Yuanyang heard this, he was unhappy. "Aya, you stupid Zhonghua. If you have the guts, come and play solo. I'll torture you to death. Come on, I'm not afraid of you." Zhonghua puffed out his chest. The two boys bumped into each other, and they seemed to be at loggerheads. However, they were quickly separated. Li Mosin pushed them apart and snorted, "Childish. Hey, how can you say that? Am I still your little cutie?" Zhonghua tugged at his sleeves and looked heartbroken. Li Jianrui couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't help but ask, "Is everyone on your school's basketball team so lively?" Chapter 22:10. When Li Jianwei heard this, she looked at traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and asked, "Is it very harsh?" "It's not that harsh. It's just that we are all the only children in our families. Sometimes, Mosen's words are not pleasant to the ear, so at this point, Lu Yuanyang interrupted traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and said, "Stop right there. What do you mean by sometimes his words aren't pleasant to the ear? Mosen's mouth is beyond saving, all right? It's just that we have a stronger psychological endurance. If it were anyone else, who would be able to take it?" Lu Yuanyang said. When Lu Yuanyang said this, Li Mosen's eyes swept over. Lu Yuanyang immediately turned his head away and pretended that the weather was good as he whistled. Li Jianhua looked at Li Mosen and asked, "Is there no one else now?" "We're a little short for the time being," Li Mosen said calmly. Traditional Chinese medicine practitioner shook his head when he heard this. "How is it a little short for the time being? There will always be a time when we're not short of people." As Lu Yuanyang walked, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "That's right, little sister. I remember that you are in class 11. When I passed by last time, I thought I saw your desk mate. He looks a little familiar. What's his name?" Li Jianwei replied, "Quan Jingyi. He's a delinquent." "Oh, he's a delinquent with a bit of a personality." Li Jianwei thought that the world might have some misunderstanding about him. Actually, he is quite a good person. When traditional Chinese medicine practitioner heard Quan Jingyi's name, his eyes lit up and he said, "So he's Quan Jingyi." Li Jianwei was a little surprised. She looked over and asked, "Why is Quan Jingyi so famous? Why do so many people know him?" "It's not strange that they know him. He is indeed quite famous. He was already quite tall when he was in junior high. He was also the leading basketball player in his previous school. Not only that, he was also the school hunk in his middle school. He's quite handsome and is very popular with girls. The leading basketball player in the team." Li Jianwei was more concerned about this. She suddenly had an idea and said, "If we can let Quan Jingyi join the basketball team, wouldn't that solve your urgent problem?" The school basketball team was currently lacking players. If someone like Quan Jingyi could join, he would definitely be a great help to the team. Moreover, the inter-school basketball competition was approaching. As the representative, Li Mosen could imagine how nervous he must be. Lu Yuanyang was fine. When traditional Chinese medicine practitioner heard Li Jianyue's words, he immediately came forward and asked, "How is your relationship with your desk mate?" It doesn't seem too good. It was a little." Li Jianyue was a little ashamed. Li Jianyue was Li Jianyue. Jianyue was a little. Li Jianyue was goddess Li Jianyue. Li Jianyue felt a little awkward when she was asked this question. She added, "But since he was on the school basketball team in junior high, he must be interested in basketball. If we invite him to join, he should be willing to join." "It's hard to say," Lu Yuanyang said with an unfathomable expression on his face. "From what I know, Quan Jingyi did something to offend his stepmother during the summer break when he was in junior high school. Now, he doesn't even have an allowance every month. Other than providing him with food and a place to stay, his family doesn't give him a single cent. That's why he occasionally sneaks out to work." Li Liang heard. Chapter 22:11. Zhonghua nudged Lu Yuanyang and said, "Forget it. Why do you care about this? The most important thing now is to think of a way to get him into the basketball team." "What do you know?" Lu Yuanyang looked disgusted. "If you want to get Quan Jingyi into the basketball team, you have to solve the problem of his pocket money first. If you don't have money to spend, you won't even have money to go to the internet cafe. How are you going to survive then?" Zhonghua secretly clicked his tongue when he heard that. That's true, but this father is too cruel. He actually started to abuse his son for the sake of his concubine. TSK, TSK, TSK. Li Jinrui heard that and had a plan in her mind. Li Mosen brought them to the top floor of the campus cafeteria. It was the most expensive and least frequented Chinese and Western restaurant. Li Jinrui was a little distracted during the meal. Li Mosen saw it and asked her, "I saw you looking for Dean Xie this morning. There were a few other students in there. What did you do?" Li Jianrui didn't expect to be seen by him. Her little face looked conflicted for a moment, and then she said, "Something happened, so I went to help." who knew that he didn't want her help at all. Speaking of which, Li Jianrui also felt that she was a little nosy. Li Mosen didn't ask any more questions. He nodded and continued eating. Zhonghua and Lu Yuanyang had known Li Mosen for more than 2 years. At this time, they felt that something was wrong with Li Mosen. He didn't seem too happy. Although this feeling was very faint, it really made them feel this kind of emotion. The two of them looked at each other and saw a look of certainty in each other's eyes. Li Jianrui didn't notice at all. After eating, she found a place to rest for a while. The first class in the afternoon was the class teacher's class. When the bell rang, Quan Jingyi walked in lazily from outside and sat in his seat. When he sat down, he put a small thing in Li Jianrui's cabinet. It was a pink thing. Li Jianrui looked down and saw that it was a box of strawberry-flavored milk. Li Jianrui was a little surprised and looked up at him. Quan Jingyi didn't look at her and said casually, "It's leftover from lunch. I don't like strawberry-flavored milk. You can solve it." Li Jianrui blinked and picked up the strawberry-flavored milk. It was a brand she liked very much, but the packaging was very new, so she didn't recognize it immediately. But on the packaging, there were 2 blue words in the shape of a chicken's feet. "Thank you." Obviously, it was written by someone. Such ugly words must be from Quan Jingyi. Was it because of what happened in the morning? Was it Quan Jiao? Before Li Jianrui could figure it out, Quan Jingyi's voice sounded again. "If you don't like it, then throw it away." Li Jianrui was now sure that this guy definitely didn't want to thank her in person, so he wrote it in a roundabout way. With a look of disdain in her eyes, Li Jianrui put the milk back and said, "It's shameful to waste it. I'll drink it after class." The Quan not. Care. Quan Shun Quan. You Don. Of. I Lu. I is. Jean. Quan of Jing. Shan Ming not. Shan. I with. Li to Li. Chapter 22:12. Li Jianrui didn't expose him. Soon, the homeroom teacher arrived. "Hello, teacher," they shouted in unison. Although Quan Jingyi's voice wasn't loud, it was still loud. Li Jianrui heard it and thought to herself, this guy doesn't seem too bad. Everyone must have some misunderstanding about him. In fact, the good student who argued with Quan Jingyi in the morning was not as good as Quan Jingyi. At least, Quan Jingyi wouldn't say something unrealistic because he wanted to shirk responsibility. After the homeroom teacher asked the students to sit down, she looked around and finally her gaze fell on Quan Jingyi. Many students in the class also noticed this and followed the teacher's gaze. Quan Jingyi raised his head slightly and raised his eyebrows slightly, looking at her with some doubt. The homeroom teacher said, "Quan Jingyi, sit at the back. Sun Xiaoyu, sit up." Quan Jingyi and Sun Xiaoyu, who were called, looked at each other. Unlike Quan Jingyi's calmness, Sun Xiaoyu looked a little confused. Quan Jingyi asked why. Li Jianyue's parents said that you have affected Li Jianyue's normal learning state. They hope that you can change seats. The homeroom teacher's tone was indisputable. Then, she looked at Sun Xiaoyu in the back row of the third group. Sun Xiaoyu was a male student who looked quite innocent and silly. His eyes were very small, and he was a little fat. The school uniform he wore was very clean, and he looked quite cute. However, Sun Xiaoyu didn't want to change seats. Sitting at the back was not only more free, but also more secretive. Okay? No matter what he did, he wouldn't be discovered immediately. Especially his position, it was a good place. Sun Xiaoyu felt a little wronged and said, "Teacher, I don't want to sit at the front. It's more suitable for me to sit at the back." The teacher said, "Change seats. Your parents also said that it's easy for you to be distracted sitting at the back. Now that you are in high school, you still have to pay attention to your studies. If you don't change seats, I can only tell your parents." Li Jianrui looked at them. To be honest, she didn't want to change seats either, but what did her parents say? She didn't think that Quan Jingyi had affected her. Moreover, she didn't say anything about school to her family. How did her parents know? Quan Jingyi had already packed his things and was carrying his school bag. Then, he stood up and threw his school bag on Sun Xiaoyu's table. He tilted his head and said, "Go up." Sun Xiaoyu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He wanted to struggle one last time and said, Teacher, there's no room for discussion. The teacher was impartial. If you really want to change your seat, it's very simple. For the first mock exam, as long as you get into the top 50 of your grade, you can choose your own seat to sit with. Then, the homeroom teacher looked at everyone and said, "The same goes for the rest of you. However, before you have the ability to get into the top 50, you better behave yourself." Sun Xiaoyu was on the verge of tears as he howled. How is that possible? There are more than 500 people in the entire grade, and there are 15 classes. If I could get into the top 50, would I still be sitting in class 11? It's good that you know. Hurry up and change classes. Li Jianyue felt a little uncomfortable. Sun Xiaoyu didn't want to change, and she didn't want to change either. But who knew that Quan Jingyi didn't have any reluctance to leave? Chapter 22:13. Li Jianyue's temper was considered good, but she still felt very unhappy when facing Sun Xiaoyu like this. She had been used to being pampered by her family since she was young. She had never encountered such unhappiness before. She called out unhappily, "Sun Xiaoyu." Sun Xiaoyu was about to fall asleep, but when he was called out, he immediately came back to his senses and asked, What's wrong?" Li Jianyue's little face tensed up, and she said seriously, "I don't care if you sleep in class, but can you sit up straight? At least don't squeeze over to my side. My seat is very small. There's no way to study at all." Sun Xiaoyu's chubby face turned slightly red, and he said, Oh. Then his chubby body moved to the side. Li Jianyue's expression finally looked better, and she sat up straight. Soon, the bell rang. It was a math class. The math teacher was a very short-sighted old man. Sun Xiaoyu put his book upright and hid his head behind it. Then he began to doze off. He had just adjusted his sitting posture during the break, but not long after the class started, he moved back crookedly. His head was even drooping. Li Jianyue couldn't stand it anymore. She reached out and pushed him. "Sit properly." Sun Xiaoyu was still in a daze. When he heard that, he sat up straight. But after a while, he was beaten back to his original state. Li Jianyue was furious and said, "Can you sit properly? I don't even have a seat." The class was unusually quiet. Li Jianyue's voice suddenly rose in the classroom. When she said that, the surrounding students all looked over. Li Jianyue's face burned, but she felt angry when she looked at Sun Xiaoyu. Sun Xiaoyu also noticed that many people around him were looking over. He also blushed and said with some grievance, "Why are you so overbearing? I didn't take up much space. Although I'm fat, it's quite hurtful for you to say that." Li Jianyue was even angrier. She said, "Can't you just sit up straight? What does it have to do with your weight? If you don't sit properly and make your deskmate uncomfortable, I won't be able to go to class." Ahem. The math teacher slammed the podium. "Sun Xiaoyu, sit up straight. Don't disturb the other students. If there's anything else, we can talk after class. Let's go back to class now." Sun Xiaoyu sat down and muttered in a low voice, "I don't see you like this when Quan Jingyi is sitting here. He sleeps in class, and I sleep in class. You just like him and not me, right?" His voice wasn't loud, so only Li Jianyue heard it. Li Jianyue was furious. "Look at how you're sitting. At least Quan Jingyi is sitting up straight. He won't disturb me. He sleeps in his own seat. He's nothing like you." Sun Xiaoyu was unconvinced. How is that possible? Who can sit up straight when they sleep? Look back and see how Quan Jingyi is sleeping. When Li Jianyue heard this, she subconsciously turned her head to look. At the table in the last row, Quan Jingyi sat crookedly. He leaned on the table and moved from one table to another in one breath. His movements were extremely arrogant and wanton. Li Jianyue was stunned and explained, "That's because he's sitting alone. When I'm there, I also sit alone. I'm used to it now. I don't want to change seats." "If you can't stand it, go and ask the teacher to change seats," Sun Xiaoyu muttered. "It's your parents who asked you to change seats. Go and ask your parents to change seats." Chapter 22:14. Sun Xiaoyu's tone was not very good. Li Jianyue was so angry that she didn't want to talk to him. She turned around and continued to listen to the class. Li Jianyue knew very well that she was not the kind of girl who was particularly smart. If she wanted to go to the same university as Brother Mosen, she had to study hard so that she could continue to go to the same school as Brother Mosen. However, if someone disturbed her, she would be easily distracted, so she couldn't sit with such a desk mate. Even though Quan Jingyi slept in class and occasionally skipped classes, he was still a very quiet person. Occasionally, he would listen to the class as well. Compared to him, Sun Xiaoyu was really terrible. Li Jianyue held back her anger. After class, she stood up and planned to talk to the head teacher about changing seats. After standing up, she squinted and saw Quan Jingyi with sleepy eyes. He was sitting up lazily, stretching and yawning. He looked a little hot. There was sweat on his forehead and his bangs were wet. His slightly long black hair was stuck to his forehead, and there were traces of his sleeves on it. As if sensing Li Jianyue's gaze, Quan Jingyi looked at her sideways and raised his eyebrows slightly, as if asking, "What's the matter?" Li Jianyue suddenly felt a little depressed. They had been desk mates for at least several weeks. Why didn't he have any reaction after changing seats? Bad guy. Li Jianyue turned around and went to find the head teacher. The head teacher nodded to show that she understood, but asked her to bear with it for a while and wait for her class to change seats. However, there was no class today, so Li Jianyue could only bear with it for 2 more classes. On the way home, sitting in the back seat of Li Mosen's car, her unhappy look did not change at all. Li Mosen had long noticed that she seemed to be unhappy. He rode the bicycle, and his slightly curly black hair flew in the wind. His white skin seemed to glow under the setting sun. He asked, "Do you want to go eat ice cream?" Li Jianyue's eyes lit up. "Can I?" The ice cream here was, of course, not simple ice cream. Li Jianyue and Li Mosen had a little secret that belonged only to the 2 of them since junior high school. Li Mosen knew a very good place. There was everything there, which was equivalent to a small amusement park. However, the location was a little remote. It was not far from the school, but it was far from their home. As soon as Li Jianyue finished speaking, she realized that Mosen was heading in the direction of the mini amusement park. Li Jianyue's mood improved instantly. She pinched Li Mosen's school jacket and asked, "What if Mom asks about it later? Mom and Dad are not at home today. I just told Daesu, and he already knows." Li Mosen's voice was bright and clear. He seemed to be smiling, but it was a little vague against the wind. Li Jianyue couldn't help but smile. She was in a great mood. When they arrived, Li Mosen locked the bicycle and led Li Jianyue inside. Li Jianyue jumped up and down. She stuck her head out to look around and asked in surprise, "Why haven't I seen that before? Is it newly built?" Li Jianyue pointed at a tall Ferris wheel. "It's so beautiful. If it was a little later and the lights were all turned on, would it be even more beautiful?" "Yes." Li Mosen held her hand. "Then let's play something else first. We can stay a little longer today. We'll come to see it together later." Li Jianyue nodded excitedly and hugged Li Mosen's arm. A satisfied smile finally appeared on her face. She pointed to the pink ice cream stall not far away and said, "I want that. I want 2 balls, 1 chocolate, and 1 strawberry." Li Mosen's blue eyes looked down at her bright smile. The slight tension disappeared without a trace. He reached out and rubbed her head dotingly. He said in a light tone, "Okay." Hearing this word, Li Jianyue proudly straightened her back. Chapter 22:15. Li Jianyue hadn't been here for a long time. It was a little crazy to play here. After getting the ice cream, Li Jianyue licked it contentedly. From time to time, she turned her head to look at the pedestrians around her. When she saw a young couple kissing on the side of the road, she quietly lowered her eyes and leaned over to Li Mosen. Brother Mosen looked to the left. Someone is kissing. Li Mosen turned his head to look. The young boy and girl were obviously not familiar with such things. The girl pushed the boy away and ran away with a blush on her face. The boy quickly chased after her and shouted, "Wait, don't be angry." This man, Li Jianyue smiled and said to Li Mosen, "That girl definitely won't be angry." Li Mosen looked at the young couple running away sweetly. He turned his head to look at Li Jianyue. There was an indescribable meaning in his eyes as he asked, "Why?" Her pink tongue licked the strawberry ice cream that was much lighter in color than her tongue. She smiled and said, That's because that little sister likes that guy. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come out to play with him. She even kissed him. If she didn't like him, she would have slapped him and run away crying. Li Jianyue didn't notice anything wrong with Li Mosen's behavior at all. She licked the strawberry ice cream with her pink tongue. As she spoke, even Li Jianyue felt that what she said made sense. She looked a little proud. Li Mosen looked at her deeply and said, "We also came to play together." Li Jianyue licked the ice cream and said indifferently, "That's different. They are a couple. We are brother and sister." When Li Mosen heard the last two words, his heart couldn't help but pause. He couldn't help but repeat in a low voice, "Brother and sister." Li Jianyue didn't hear him. She looked around and ate the last bite of ice cream. She pulled Li Mosen's hand and shouted, "I want to play on the pirate ship." Then she rolled her eyes and said, "Do you want to play with me?" In the past, when Li Mosen brought her here, he never played. Li Jianyue always laughed at him, saying that he was timid and didn't dare to play such a small game. But every time, Li Jianyue's taunts were useless. Li Mosen was determined not to come up. Li Jianyue had thought that Li Mosen would definitely not play with him this time. She was already prepared to go on an adventure alone. Unexpectedly, Li Mosen looked at the couple who were still shouting loudly on the pirate ship and holding each other's hands. He actually said, "Okay." Li Jianyue's eyes lit up and she cheered. Afraid that he would go back on his word, she quickly pulled him and started running. Li Mosen was quickly dragged away by her. After getting on board, Li Jianyue screamed all the way. She sat on the pirate ship and held Li Mosen's hand tightly. Li Mosen held her tightly and asked, "Are you afraid?" Li Jianyue immediately shouted, "I'm scared." Ah! Li Mosen was speechless. There was really no one else who could shout so excitedly even if they were afraid. After Li Jianyue came down, she laughed all the way. She spun around happily and shouted, "Brother Mosen, were you so scared that you didn't dare to scream just now?" Li Mosen smiled and said, "Yes, it was too scary." Oof. Li Jianyue looked unconvinced. "Can you be more careful when you're afraid? Then should I shiver first?" Chapter 22:16. Li Mosen raised his head to take a look. The pendulum was currently in motion, and the screams coming from it were much louder than those from the pirate ship. There were also a lot more people on the pendulum. Everyone seemed to be laughing, but some of them were scared to the point that their faces were ashen. Li Mosen looked and asked, "Is it very scary?" Li Jianyue was a little proud and said, "The king of the amusement park, the super big pendulum. Some people would think that this is even scarier than a roller coaster." Li Mosen had been on a roller coaster before. Li Mosen had seen this big pendulum many times, but he had never been interested in it. Firstly, because he was not interested. Secondly, Li Mosen felt that it would be very noisy listening to the screams around him. When Li Jianyue saw that he didn't react, she deliberately tried to scare him. She said, "You might not know what it feels like. It's when you sit on the chair and the pendulum swings out. You'll feel like you're being thrown up into the air. That feeling of losing your center of gravity." Li Mosen raised his eyebrows slightly. "Is it that scary?" Li Jianyue looked at his leisurely expression and was even more unconvinced. She grabbed his hand and said, "Let's go. I'll bring you up, and you will know." Li Mosen chuckled and responded faintly. Sure enough, when they came up, they did not disappoint him. It really felt like his whole body was being thrown up. It was as if his whole body was weightless. He flew in the air and was on the verge of falling. The two of them were sitting together. Li Jianyue held his hand tightly and said, "I'm afraid that you are afraid. I want to give you a little sense of security." But after they went up, Li Jianyue did not even dare to open her eyes. She screamed at the top of her voice. Unlike the excited screams on the pirate ship just now, this time there was a clear sense of fear and panic. Li Mosen held her hand tightly and looked out slightly. The big pendulum was thrown very high, and they were in the suburbs. At a glance, they could see a lot of empty space. A little further, it was the famous sacred land of thousands of lavender. At a glance, it was very beautiful. Li Mosen said, "Ursu, open your eyes and look." Li Jianyue did not dare to. She was just about to admit defeat when she suddenly realized that Li Mosen was so calm. Was he really not afraid at all? Li Jianyue tugged at his hand. She only dared to open her eyes when she felt that the pendulum was slowing down. Li Mosen saw her open her eyes. He pointed to the front and said, "We're almost there. Look ahead." Sure enough, as soon as Mosen's voice fell, the pendulum was facing the holy land of lavender. A large field of purple flowers, the dreamy colors were formed into a large heart shape. In the past, when Li Jianyue came to play, she never dared to open her eyes. This was the first time she saw it. Looking at the lavender, he couldn't help but exclaim, "How beautiful!" Li Mosen smirked. "Let's go to the Ferris wheel." Li Jianyue's eyes lit up, and she immediately nodded her head. After the two of them came down, Li Jianyue walked past a clumsy Kumaman. The Kumaman was holding a basket in its hand. There were cute little things in the basket. There were all kinds of cat ears and rabbit ears. When the button was pressed, the little things would light up. Chapter 22:17. It was already past 6 o'clock, and the sky had already darkened. The night was hazy, and the surrounding street lights were golden, mottled with the sound of human voices. Li Jianyue wore the rabbit ears on her head. The white light was wrapped in pink. Under the cute pink light, her originally cute face looked even more delicate. Li Jianyue did not forget to blink her big round eyes at Li Mosen. When she smiled, she even revealed a small canine tooth. Mosen was slightly dazed, and his eyes darkened. He reached out and pressed her head. "You're cute. You've always been cute." He. Li Jianyue's face was full of joy. She turned around to pick up another ear from the Kumaman bear basket. "Squat down." It was a pair of wolf ears, dark blue with pink hues. It looked extremely cute. Li Mosen did as he was told and bent down slightly. Li Jianyue took the opportunity to stand on her tiptoes and put on Li Mosen. "Wow, it's so cute." Li Mosen looked at her cute smile and poked her chubby face. "It's enough that you're cute. I don't want to be cute." As he spoke, he tried to take it off. Li Jianyue immediately pressed his hand down and said, No, don't take it off. It's so pretty. Oh, by the way, how much is it?" Li Jianyue quickly took out her pink cartoon purse from her school bag, for fear that Li Mosen would go back on his words. Kumamoto carried a basket and began to draw with his other hand. Li Jianyue took a look. "Oh, one is 20, 2 are 40, right?" Kumamoto gave her a thumbs up. She looked at the Kumaman bear and then at Li Mosen. She said, "You must be a handsome man. You're so tall. You're even taller than my brother." Li Mosen wore the wolf ears reluctantly. When he saw that she was still talking to the Kumaman bear, he patted her head and said, "Let's go. Do you still want to go home? Are we going home after the Ferris wheel?" Li Jianyue looked a little reluctant. She rubbed her stomach and said, "I'm hungry. Then let's go back and eat. I want sushi." Mosen smiled. He couldn't hide the affection in his eyes. "Okay." Li Jianyue immediately skipped away with a smile on her face. Her steps were light and quick, revealing the spirit of a young girl. The corners of Li Mosen's mouth curled up slightly. The helplessness and indulgence in his eyes couldn't be clearer. Mosen followed. He had only taken a few steps when he inexplicably felt as if someone was watching him from behind. When he turned around, he saw that the Kumaman bear had turned around and was handing a cat ear to a little girl. "Brother Mosen, hurry up," Li Jianyue urged from behind. Li Mosen looked at the Kumaman bear, which was more than 8 meters tall. He raised his eyebrows slightly and quickly turned around to follow Li Jianyue. The Ferris wheel was new and well-maintained. The glass was wiped clean. As soon as Li Jianyue went up, she was attracted by the young girl's attire. The entire Ferris wheel was decorated with pink decorations, and there were also glazed tassels hanging from the top. The distance was a little high, but Li Mosen's height was within reach. "Wow, so beautiful." Li Jianyue's eyes looked left and right. Soon, the Ferris wheel slowly rose. In the evening in Kingstown, the lights were just beginning to come on. The night was hazy, and there were people surging below. Li Jianyue held the handle with both hands and looked down. Her bright eyes were sparkling. There was nothing else in Li Mosen's eyes. His eyes clearly reflected Li Jianyue's appearance, clean and clear. Chapter 22:18. The Ferris wheel rose slowly. It was not too far away from the horizon. Li Mosen looked at Li Jianyue with sparkling eyes. At that moment, he felt that someone was looking at him. Subconsciously turning his head, he easily spotted the clumsy Kumaman amidst the bustling crowd. The Kumaman did not seem to be looking at him. He was holding something in his hand and soliciting customers. "Wow, it's so beautiful!" Li Jianyue exclaimed. "Brother Mosen, look, you can really see it." The Ferris wheel rose higher and higher. Li Jianyue looked at the lavender garden in the distance excitedly. "It's really beautiful. There are so many lights. I'll look." Li Mosen naturally walked down beside her. Li Jianyue sat by the side and looked out. Her face was full of amazement. "Look, it looks like Little Red Riding Hood." Li Jianyue pointed at the theme lights in the park. The lights were connected to form a line. It was the image of Little Red Riding Hood. Next to Little Red Riding Hood stood a wolf grandmother. Li Jianyue looked over and realized that the park was actually very big. Moreover, the view from the Ferris wheel was very good. The glass was very clean, and the scenery in all directions naturally came into view. "Wow!" Li Jianyue picked up her phone to take a picture. Suddenly, she thought of something and asked Li Mosen, "We're not back yet. Are you sure you told brother?" Li Jianyue had called him that since she was young. Li Jianxian was the older brother, Li Mosen was Brother Mosen, and Yu Chulin was Brother Chu. Other than the biological brother, the others all had names. When Li Mosen was young, he was quite bothered by this title. He felt that Ursu was reminding him that he was not their biological son. But later, he felt very lucky. Fortunately, she did not treat him as her biological brother. When he heard this question, Li Mosen nodded slightly and said, "I did." Li Jianyue was relieved. After snapping many pictures of the scenery, she suddenly turned her head and smirked mischievously. "The wolf ears are so cute. I want to show them to brother," Li Jianyue said. Li Mosen immediately grabbed her hand. "You can't send them. That's a pity. Of course, such beautiful pictures should be shared with everyone." Li Jianyue giggled. After she clicked on it, she realized that Li Mosen really had no blind spots at all. He looked good from every angle. The most important thing was, it looked like the legendary little wolf dog. Li Jianyue blurted out in a moment of carelessness. Then she covered her mouth and hurried to find Li Jianxian's WeChat to send out. Li Mosen took her phone away. "You can't send it, or I'll delete it." "Oh no, then don't post it," Li Mosen said with a warning look on his face. However, when he saw the pitiful look on Li Jianyue's face, he took a step back and said, "You can use it as wallpaper." When Li Jianyue heard this, her eyes lit up. Okay, I'll use it as my wallpaper." She took the phone back and changed the wallpaper for herself. Li Mosen's dark blue eyes were staring at her on the phone screen. The corners of his mouth were slightly curved, and with his slightly curly short hair, he looked like a prince in a fairy tale. Li Mosen's eyes were fixed on her. It was just that the prince did not know how to wear a school uniform. Li Jianyue giggled and took a screenshot. She posted it on her WeChat Moments and wrote, "I've changed to a new wallpaper." When Li Mosen saw her mischievous smile, he knew that something was wrong. He reached out to take her phone, but Li Jianyue had already expected it. She held the phone tightly and said, "I didn't send it to brother. She just posted it on her WeChat Moments." Li Mosen was skeptical. He turned his head and looked out. The Ferris wheel had already reached the ground. The two of them got off the Ferris wheel. Li Mosen subconsciously looked for Kumaman. Chapter 22:19. As soon as Li Mosen's photo of the little wolf puppy was posted, his WeChat Moments exploded. "Rong Pan. Ah. How did Brother Mosen become more handsome? Oh, Xiao. 66,666. My mom told him to be careful when he goes out." Desu, Brother Chu liked the post. As for the rest, they were all students from the same class. Chuyan, wow, who is this? Was he a newly debuted male idol? Fang Xinjin, this is Senior Mosen in grade 12. I really envy you for having such a handsome brother. Below, envy +1, envy +2, envy +3. Li Jinrui looked at the comments and felt happy. She turned her head and found that Li Mosin was a little absent-minded. Brother Mosin, what's wrong? Li Mosin quickly turned his gaze and shook his head. Let's go eat. Okay. Li Jinrui liked to eat out. At home, her parents specially found nutritionists to customize the healthy diet. Although the taste was quite good, anyone would get tired of eating it over the years. Li Mosin took Li Jinrui to the restaurant that he often ate with his friends. It was a restaurant that specialized in pickled fish with chili and chili. In addition to the pickled fish with chili and chili, there was barbecue and dessert. Sure enough, when Li Jinrui came over, it was as if she had discovered a new world. She ordered a lot of things. Li Mosin saw that she ordered a lot of things and said helplessly, "You ordered so much. What if you can't finish it?" "It's okay," Li Jinrui said confidently and smiled. "You're here. Anyway, if I can't finish it, you can take care of it." Li Mosin said, "I can't finish it either." "Then, why don't we ask our brothers to come and eat?" Li Jinrui picked up her phone and opened WeChat. Brothers definitely can't eat this in the capital. Grandpa and Grandma will definitely monitor their diet. TSK, so poor. Forget it. Li Mosin interrupted her. We are eating secretly. It's better not to let Daesu and the others find out. And it was rare to have a chance to be alone. Why did they have to ask others to come along? If Daesu came alone, it would be fine. But if Daesu came, Chu would definitely come along. Li Mosin picked up his cup to hide the emotions on his face. Li Jinrui thought for a moment. That's true. Maybe brother and brother Chu are still on mom and dad's side. If mom and dad find out, I'll be scolded again. Li Jinrui understood and placed the phone on the table. Hey, isn't this Senior Li? A woman's voice, with a hint of pleasant surprise, said, I can't believe I'm able to meet you here. It must be fate. Li Jinrui followed the sound and looked over. It was a girl who looked more mature than her. She was about 17 or 18 years old, but she was wearing casual clothes. Her face had makeup on, and her hair was down. She looked at Li Mosin with a blush on her cheeks. Li Mosin raised his eyelids lazily, glanced at him casually, and then ignored him. The girl didn't expect Li Mosin to be so cold. The shy smile on her face froze. Order a drink? Li Mosin glanced at the menu. You ordered so much. Don't you know how to order a drink? His tone was clearly dissatisfied, but there was no hint of blame in it. Li Jinrui had long been accustomed to such a tone, but in the ears of outsiders, it sounded full of doting. Chapter 22:20. As soon as she said this, Li Jinrui turned to look at her. Just as she was about to speak angrily, Li Mosin spoke up. Do I know you? Li Mosin's tone was light, with obvious alienation and indifference. It was obvious that he was unwilling to talk to her. The girl's already blushing face became even hotter at this moment. Her eyes immediately turned red. I'm from year 3. I'm in year 3. Li Mosin looked away and his gaze fell on the menu. I don't know you. He then asked Li Jinrui, how about orange juice? I want to drink soy milk. Li Mosin smiled and replied, okay. He quickly called the waiter over and directly passed the menu in his hand to the girl in front of him. From the beginning to the end, he did not even look at her. The girl finally couldn't take it anymore. Wah! She burst into tears and turned to run. When Li Jinrui saw this, she felt a little guilty and said, Brother Mosin, it's not good for you to do this. Why not? Li Mosin did not feel that there was anything wrong with him. Since you don't like them, you should not give them any hope at all. Let them know that I am an arrogant and impolite person, then they will not pester me. Li Jinrui frowned and said angrily, Brother Mosin is not like that. You are the best, Brother Mosin. Li Mosin smiled slightly. How good am I? Very good, very good. Li Jinrui quickly counted on her fingers. You are polite, handsome, and obedient to mommy and daddy. Also, grandpa and grandma like you very much. So do grandpa and great-grandpa. Everyone says that you are a good child. And Brother Mosin is very good. He is super good to me. Li Jinrui said. Li Mosen couldn't help but laugh when he saw the little girl listing her good points in a daze. All right, I'm tired of hearing this, he said with a chuckle. Yes, yes, Li Jianhua was a little proud. I'm not the only one saying it. There are other people saying it too. That is why Brother Mosen is tired of hearing it. The waiter served their drinks, and Li Jianhua drank a mouthful of soy milk contentedly. The corners of Li Mosen's lips curled up, and his tone was light. Yes, that's why you're not a bad person. You're right. If you can't give them a response, just kill their ideas in the cradle. That's right. Brother Mosen, I support you. That's not what you said just now. It's all in the past. Don't mind it. Clever little brat. Li Jianhua laughed shamelessly. Suddenly, she noticed that someone was looking at her from afar. He subconsciously turned his head to look. Just 2 or 3 tables away, a girl was glaring at him angrily. Wasn't that the girl who had just run away? Li Jianhua suddenly felt a little guilty. She shifted her gaze and saw the girl sitting in front of her. That girl was wearing a beautiful pink princess hat and exuded a sweet Lolita style. She looked very clean, but why did she look so familiar? As if sensing Li Jianhua's gaze, he turned his head and grinned at her. When he smiled, Li Jianhua felt as if something had hit her heart. Such a sweet smile was too lethal. So beautiful, so cute. Chapter 22-21. Li Jianhua couldn't help but take a few more glances and returned a friendly smile. Li Mosen noticed it and followed Li Jianhua's gaze. He had always had a photographic memory. Of course, he knew that he had seen this girl before. However, he didn't have any impression of this person. Li Mosen only looked back and retracted his gaze. Eat. Okay. Li Jianhua picked up her chopsticks and picked up some food for Li Mosen. She smiled and said, "This is to reward the good Li Mosen." Li Mosen couldn't help but chuckle and picked up some food for her. "This is to reward the little fairy, Li Ursu." Hey, I have a name, okay? My name is Li Jianhua. Okay. Li Mosen lowered his head to eat. Go back early after eating, Li Ursu. Li Jianhua was angry and reached out her chopsticks to his bowl. Return it to me. I won't give you a reward. Li Mosen quickly stopped her chopsticks. Hey, eat. Don't touch me. Then apologize to me. I was wrong. Li Mosen held back his laughter. Little fairy, Li Jianhua eat. Li Jianhua lowered her head and put a piece of ginger in Li Mosen's bowl. This is your punishment. Where's the reward? It's in your bowl. Ah, you're fair. Of course. I'm a fair fairy. Li Mosen couldn't help but smile. He picked up some of her favorite fish in her bowl. Li Jianhua's face was full of pride. While stuffing food in her mouth, she said, "Even if you please me like this, I won't cancel your punishment." Yes, yes, yes. From afar, Li Mosen's blue eyes looked especially bright under the soft, warm light. His slightly curly black hair made his sharp and deep face look especially gentle. However, such gentleness and consideration were for another girl. Although that girl was also very beautiful, she was not bad-looking. Why was Senior Mosen so gentle to her? Tanwana looked at them from afar and felt very uncomfortable. She said angrily, "Senior Mosen is too ungentlemanly. He's deliberately so cold to other girls in front of his girlfriend. He must be pretending. Senior Mosen's true colors must be a polite and gentlemanly senior, just like a prince." When Qin Shizhao heard this, she laughed. "What does it have to do with you? Isn't it okay for him to treat his girlfriend well? It's only right for him to behave well in front of his girlfriend. If you were his girlfriend, you would be happy to see such a boyfriend." Qin Wanner was speechless, but she still felt unconvinced. She whispered, "But you shouldn't be so cold. It hurts. If I don't hurt him, will you give up?" Tanwana was completely speechless this time. She said angrily, "Take a bath? Whose cousin are you? Why are you like this?" "Stop. My name is Shizhao, not take a bath. Besides, I'm only 1 day younger than you. Whether in terms of appearance or mentality, I'm much more mature than you." Qin Shizhao drank her tea. Under the brim of her wide princess hat, she looked at Li Mosen with a smile. "I won't foolishly go up and strike up a conversation. Then what do you want?" Tanwana looked at Qin Shizhao and was a little curious. Do you also like boys like Senior Mosen? But he's so fierce. Chapter 22-22. It had been a month since the start of the new semester. After the Golden Week, everyone's mind was still on vacation. Li Siqing took his 2 sons and a daughter to New Zealand again. Everyone had a good time. However, the happiness of the past few days made it impossible for Li Jinrui to return to her study state immediately after returning to school. When she returned to school, she found that other than herself, the other students were the same. She felt relieved. Ever since they were assigned seats, Li Jinrui had been feeling very uncomfortable. Everyone used to say that Quan Jingyi was a bad child, a typical delinquent, because he often acted like a gangster in junior high school and organized school violence among his classmates. Therefore, everyone was very afraid of him. However, after interacting with him, Li Jinrui realized that it was not like that at all. Although Quan Jingyi did not like to talk to others, he had never bullied other students in the class, nor did he fight, as they said. Even when he slept in class, he always stayed in his own seat and would not disturb his deskmate at all. Just this point alone made him much better than her new deskmate, Sun Xiaoyu. Sun Xiaoyu was originally fat, but after this holiday, he became much rounder. What was worse was that he seemed to be very tired from playing. As soon as he entered the class, he collapsed in his seat and fell asleep. It was not until the morning reading class began and the teacher came over that he slowly woke up. But when the teacher wasn't paying attention and the students were still reading, Sun Xiaoyu dozed off again. He blended in with the sound of reading, making it impossible to notice his appearance. Sun Xiaoyu fell asleep, and his body tilted toward Li Jinrui. Li Jinrui was so angry that she poked him with a pen. Sun Xiaoyu immediately bounced up in pain and shouted, "Are you crazy?" It was very loud. This shout made the sound of reading in the class stop abruptly. Everyone looked over. Li Jinrui was shocked by such a shout. Seeing that everyone in the class was looking at her, she said angrily, "You are affecting my study. If you want to sleep, go home and sleep." Sun Xiaoyu was already very annoyed when his sleep was interrupted. Now that he was scolded by Li Jianyue in front of so many people, he became even angrier. "Why are you pretending to be a good student? Don't think that I don't know that you are also absent-minded in class. Do you still think that you are a good student? I think you have a problem with me. You don't want to sit with me. You want to sit with Quan Jingyi, right? It's better to sit with Quan Jingyi than with you. You sleep in class and disturb others. I'm not going to sit with you anymore. You think I want to sit with you?" The surrounding students began to discuss. Li Jianyue slammed her pen on the table and turned her head. By chance, she saw Quan Jingyi looking at her. Li Jianyue became even angrier. The more she looked at Sun Xiaoyu, the more she disliked him. The teacher quickly rushed over and asked loudly, "What's going on?" Li Jianyue felt a little wronged and told him about the matter. Sun Xiaoyu's voice grew even louder. "Teacher, don't listen to her nonsense. This Li Jianyue doesn't have her mind on her studies at all. She just wants to sit with Quan Jingyi and have a puppy love." Li Jianyue was so angry that she was about to cry. She shouted, "You're talking nonsense. I didn't." Chapter 22-23. Sun Xiaoyu spoke with great detail. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the class cheered in unison and immediately started a commotion. So Yang Ziheo really fought with Quan Jingyi because of Li Jianyue. That little four-eyed actually dared to fly into a rage for a beauty? Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. I don't think Quan Jingyi likes Li Jianyue very much. He probably fought because he was unhappy with Yang Ziheo. Quan Jingyi doesn't seem like someone who would like Li Jianyue. That's hard to say. I think Li Jianyue is quite pretty. If Quan Jingyi really likes Li Jianyue, there will be a good show to watch. Sun Xiaoyu, that fat pig, dares to offend Mrs. Quan? It was the first year of high school, and they had just returned from the holidays. Everyone's hearts were floating, especially at this ignorant age. They were the most sensitive and curious about the gossip of unrequited love in puberty. At this moment, the class was in chaos. The teacher was furious when she saw this. She slammed the podium hard and shouted, "Quiet! Li Jianyue, Sun Xiaoyu, follow me to the office." Li Jianyue was so angry that she cried. She shouted, "It's not like that at all. Sun Xiaoyu is talking nonsense." The class was even more rowdy. "Sun Xiaoyu, you're dead. How dare you make Mrs. Quan cry? You're finished. Finished." When Sun Xiaoyu heard these words in the class, his heart beat wildly. He shouted, "It's not my fault. What I said is the truth." "Enough." The teacher was furious. "Go to the office. The rest of you, study by yourselves." Just like that, Li Jianyue was brought back to the classroom office. Sun Xiaoyu pouted reluctantly and muttered, "I'm so unlucky. Why did I have to meet such a busybody?" Li Jianyue's hearing was not bad. When she heard this, she turned around angrily. Sun Xiaoyu glared back fearlessly. But just as he was walking forward, he suddenly stumbled and his fat body fell forward. "Ah!" Sun Xiaoyu screamed. Then, the sound of a body falling to the ground was heard. The whole class cheered and looked at the person who caused Sun Xiaoyu's fall. Who else could it be but Quan Jingyi? Quan Jingyi slowly retracted his foot and apologized insincerely. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." His tone was cold, and his gaze was indifferent. He looked at Sun Xiaoyu's eyes calmly, without a hint of guilt. When Li Jianyue saw it, she found it hard to believe. Wasn't he doing it on purpose? Sun Xiaoyu, who was on the ground, raised his head. On his chubby face, 2 streaks of blood flowed down from his nose. Wah, Sun Xiaoyu's nose is bleeding. Exciting. Is Quan Jingyi a hero saving the damsel in distress? This Li Jianyue is way too charming. Sun Xiaoyu reached out his hand and wiped his nose. Only then did he see that his hand was covered in blood. The next second, he burst into tears. As the female protagonist of the gossip, Li Jianyue felt a little pleased when she saw Sun Xiaoyu crying on the ground. The teacher was walking in front, walking a little fast. When he heard the commotion in the class, he quickly turned back. Seeing the scene, he trembled and shouted, "Quan Jingyi, get your ass over here too." Sun Xiaoyu got up from the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Quan Jingyi stood up from his seat. His gaze was calm and carefree. He looked at Li Jianyue and walked forward. Chapter 22-24. Sun Xiaoyu cried even more miserably and shouted, "Quan Jingyi, I'm not done with you." Quan Jingyi turned his head and looked at Sun Xiaoyu condescendingly. He said without sincerity, "I've already said that I didn't do it on purpose." The people in the class were not blind. Whether he did it on purpose or not, the eyes of the crowd could see it clearly. However, no one dared to speak up for Sun Xiaoyu. There were more people watching the show. The teacher dragged the 3 of them to the office and handed them over to their class teacher. Li Jianyue had never been scolded like this since she was young. The word meddlesome pierced her heart. As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry out of grievance. Sun Xiaoyu couldn't help but refute. "I didn't offend her. She just didn't want to sit with me. I can't do anything about it. I think she just wants to fall in love. Teacher, you have to discipline her. You're talking nonsense." Li Jianyue cried and shouted, "You're the one who slept in class and likes to lean on my seat. Doesn't your conscience hurt saying such things? I'm also speaking the truth. Quan Jingyi even hit me just now. It's all because of you. When did I hit you?" Quan Jingyi's voice finally sounded lazily. "I just accidentally stuck my foot out. It's your fault for not watching where you're going. Why are you blaming me?" Sun Xiaoyu was flustered and exasperated. "You're obviously quibbling. Aren't you quibbling? You bullied your female deskmate and even framed her for falling in love. What kind of upbringing is that?" Quan Jingyi said coldly and sarcastically. Sun Xiaoyu's chubby face turned green and red. "You guys are in cahoots. You ganged up to bully me." "Enough." The teacher heard it and felt a headache coming on. Quan Jingyi had the worst reputation in the class. Moreover, he had indeed been deskmates with Li Jianyue. As a bad student, it was very possible for him to fall in love at a young age. However, Li Jianyue was the daughter of the school's biggest sponsor. It was said that Mr. Lee had recently temporarily given the school 2 science laboratories and 2 new media classrooms. The teacher's dormitory building for the past 2 years was also sponsored by Mr. Lee. Therefore, even if Lee Jianyue was really in love, they couldn't let Sun Xiaoyu go around spouting nonsense. The teachers knew what was going on and immediately stopped Sun Xiaoyu. Don't talk nonsense. Lee Jianyue has always been a good student. Her morals are definitely better than yours. How can you frame a classmate? It's a fact that you slept in class. Do you still need to quibble? Sun Xiaoyu cried out in grievance. Li Jianyue was the one who bullied me. She even poked me with a pen many times. You can't let her off just because she's a girl. You're still talking nonsense. The teacher's face was full of anger. I don't know what kind of conflict you have with Quan Jingyi, but it's very low of you to implicate a female student in your conflict. Quickly apologize to Li Jianyue. I don't want to. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I apologize? Sun Xiaoyu's attitude was very firm. Quan Jingyi even bullied me. Look, my nose is bleeding. Quan Jingyi replied lazily. I've already said that I didn't do it on purpose. Besides, didn't I already apologize? But you framed Li Jianyue and me at the same time. Shouldn't you apologize to me as well? Quan Jingyi asked. Sun Xiaoyu was flustered and exasperated. He shouted, Why should I apologize to you? I'm the victim. Reporting. A young boy wearing glasses walked in from the door of the office. It was Yang Ziheo. Chapter 22-25. Yang Ziheo walked in with his head bowed. He didn't even dare to look at them. Li Jianyue couldn't believe it and said, Nonsense. I didn't. Yang Ziheo turned to look at her and quickly turned away in a panic. He said quickly, If you don't want people to know, don't do it. When Quan Jingyi saw Yang Ziheo walk in, his eyes turned cold. When he saw his trademark glasses, he said in a low voice, How did you get my notebook? Yang Ziheo said confidently and righteously, Of course I saw it on your desk. My books are all in my school bag. Quan Jingyi's voice was a little low. At first glance, it sounded a little indifferent. Going through a classmate's school bag without permission. Is this what your parents taught you? Then, his eyes suddenly turned cold and his tone became heavier. Taking without asking is stealing. Yang Ziheo's expression changed. He turned to look at the teacher. The teacher frowned. Obviously, she didn't approve of Yang Ziheo's behavior. Yang Ziheo quickly said, Teacher, you should take a look at what he drew in the notebook first. What did he draw? Li Jianyue had an ominous feeling in her heart. She turned to look. The teacher had already taken the notebook from Yang Ziheo's hands. Just as she was about to flip it open, Quan Jingyi suddenly reached out and pulled the notebook back. He said, This is my sketchbook. It involves my own privacy. Yang Ziheo was delighted and said, Teacher, look, he's feeling guilty. Quan Jingyi's expression darkened. He turned to look at Yang Ziheo and said, Even a thief like you doesn't feel guilty. Why should I? The word thief was a little harsh. Yang Ziheo's face turned slightly pale. You, Quan Jingyi, if you don't feel guilty, show me the notebook, the teacher said. You're still young. Puppy love must be stopped. Student Lee is a good child. You can't be poisoned by bad classmates at such a young age. In a few words, he had made his position clear. The teacher had already decided that Quan Jingyi was a bad child. He had been like this since he was young. Although Quan Jingyi was already used to such slander, he still felt a little embarrassed in front of Li Jianyue. Li Jianyue looked at Quan Jingyi and subconsciously looked at the sketchbook in his hand. What exactly was drawn on it that made Yang Ziheo so certain and Quan Jingyi, who had always appeared indifferent, so concerned? Sun Xiaoyu, on the other hand, added fuel to the fire and said, Li Jianyue isn't a good classmate either. Teacher, don't be fooled by her appearance. This woman is very vicious. She poked me with the needle of the compass. Li Jianyue almost jumped up. When did I use a compass? Don't spout nonsense. The teacher didn't want to hear them talk about this. His eyes were still on Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi, let me take a look. Quan Jingyi's lips tightened. I have everything in my sketchbook. I don't want to show you. Yang Ziheo, tell me, what did you see? I saw Quan Jingyi drawing Li Jianyue, and there was a woman's naked body in it. Yang Ziheo's voice was a little loud. Quan Jingyi's expression darkened. Li Jianyue was also shocked. She couldn't help but look at Quan Jingyi a few more times. She didn't expect Quan Jingyi to be such a person. Chapter 22-26. The way Li Jianyue looked at him made Quan Jingyi feel very uncomfortable. Even though everyone looked at him the same way, Li Jianyue's gaze was the only one that he couldn't accept. When the teacher heard Yang Ziheo's words, her expression darkened. She looked at Quan Jingyi and said, "Quan Jingyi, this matter has now escalated to a matter of character. You'd better show it to me. Otherwise, you might be seen as a pervert." When he heard the words pervert and pervert, Quan Jingyi's expression darkened even more. Yang Ziheo and Sun Xiaoyu looked at each other. They could see in each other's eyes that they were rejoicing in the other's misfortune. Yang Ziheo pushed up his glasses and added fuel to the fire. "He's a pervert. Teacher, I think this kind of black sheep should be expelled. Don't go too far. What did Quan Jingyi do? You were the one who started the fight with you. It's not like you don't know how Sun Xiaoyu bullied me. How dare someone like you write me a love letter? How disgusting." Li Jianyue was furious. Yang Ziheo's face turned pale, and he immediately denied. "What nonsense are you talking about? What did I write you a love letter? Don't think too highly of yourself." "Think highly of myself?" This was the first time Li Jianyue had heard someone use this term to describe her. She was so angry that her face turned red, and she said, "I still have the love letter. You wrote it. You said that your friend gave it to me. I only found out later that you were Yang Ziheo. You even wanted me to be your girlfriend." Yang Ziheo stepped forward and gave her a shove. He said in a panic, "Don't talk nonsense." Quan Jingyi's face darkened. He had already stepped forward to stop Yang Ziheo. His tall figure appeared especially burly in front of the thin Yang Ziheo. He looked down at him and said, "You're angry from embarrassment. The teacher is still here." She turned her head and saw that the teacher's face had indeed turned purple. "Li Jianyue, what's going on?" Li Jianyue told the whole story in detail and added, "My brother doesn't allow me to date at a young age, so I blocked his WeChat. I can get my brother to testify for me. He's in grade 12. His name is Limosin." Upon hearing Limosin's name, the teacher's expression softened a little. "Limosin is a good boy. He ranks first in his grade every year and has won a lot of collective honors for the school. His character is commendable. He is indeed a very good boy." Yang Ziheo panicked. "Teacher, That's enough." The teacher waved his hand impatiently. "That's another matter. Quan Jingyi, show me your drawing first." Although Quan Jingyi was reluctant, after meeting Li Jianyue's strange gaze, he finally compromised and handed over the painting in his hand. The teacher took it and casually flipped through it. It was a painting that had clearly been completed not long ago. This was a pen drawing. There are not many lines used, but these few lines were enough to outline a young girl. She was smiling sweetly and had a pair of rabbit ears on top of her head. She held an ice cream in her hand and looked extremely happy and charmingly naive. It was dated a few days ago. Li Jianyue had obviously seen it too. When she saw herself appear on his drawing, Li Jianyue was obviously shocked. However, she quickly felt a little surprised and said, "You're so cute. I didn't know you were so good at drawing." The teacher nodded in agreement with Li Jianyue's words. Quan Jingyi was surprised by their reactions. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.